There we are. Okay.
Oh, there we are.
Welcome, everybody. Hello.
Hello.
I just need to make sure I have everything all up.
Hello.
Okay. Well done. Very hello.
That's very good.
Okay. So hello, everyone.
Oh.
For those of you who have not been here before, my name is Natasha, and I'm a psychotherapist at Blackbird Psychology, and I'm autistic and have ADHD. And we're here with two other therapists from Blackbird Psychology.
Hooray!
Hooray! Thank you for the gift, Purple Meadows. James, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi. So yes, hello. I'm James Sepansky. I'm a clinical psychologist at Blackbird Psychology.
Great, good job. And Joe?
Hello, I'm Joe, or Joseph, whatever floats your boat, I don't really care. I am a psychotherapist at Blackbird Psychology.
Yeah, wonderful. And we're going to be talking about autism and ADHD today and answering questions from chat. We are currently streaming on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch. So welcome. And we're going to be just playing some Power Wash Simulator in the background. It's just a nice little ADHD type kind of satisfying hyperfocus sort of game. Which a lot of people find relaxing, and we're going to be playing that in the background. So let's maybe get started on a level. Yes, the camping. Hooray!
Just before we do that, I just want
Mhm.
can I just get Tash to get you to turn around so that you can see that in this game,
Hooray!
in Power Simulator 2, there are cats that you can pat.
That
This
is
guy's name is
that
Squeak,
is truly incredible.
and that is the best thing that I have
Thank you, Lee,
ever
for the gifts.
seen in my entire life.
There is a kitty, and thank you, Purple Meadows, for the gifts. Yeah.
And his name is Squeak.
His name is Squeak. That is
And
very
there is
relevant.
also over here
That is a kitty.
Bubbles, which is incredible.
Hello,
and
everyone.
Ulysses. And Ulysses is just majestic.
Ulysses is majestic, truly majestic. Oh, we now have 4 watchers on YouTube, which is the most people on YouTube we've ever had. So hello, YouTube. I know. Let's get started. So I think we'll just take a few moments to get oriented in the game, and then we can start going through some questions.
Yeah.
Hi, Willow. Oh, it's filthy.
Oh my, oh goodness. Right.
Change stance, okay, I'm just doing the tutorial.
Let's sort this out.
Okay, Leah, no stealing the cat. Stealing the cat is banned. Is generally frowned upon. There we go. Jump, alright, good, I like it. There we go, okay, rotate nozzle, alright, we got this. Alright, okay, it's happening. Congratulations, Split Peas. I'm glad you got your ADHD diagnosis. The big stream is here.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
right.
Congratulations.
I hope the process was fine, because it can be hard.
Yeah.
So hopefully it was not too difficult to get through.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't we start going on to some of the questions that were asked that were submitted prior to the live commencing.
Oh yeah, because that's the thing that people were able to do.
That's the thing that people were able to do this time. Yeah, people were able to submit questions.
Did not know that.
Yeah. Now, if you would like to ask questions, please ask them through chat because we're no longer monitoring.
Hooray!
Hooray! Thank you for the gift, Gracie. We're no longer monitoring that because now we're in the live. But oh my god, I'm trying to get my controls right. But the first question we had was I'm confused about the difference between pathological demand avoidance and oppositional defiant disorder. Hooray! Thank you, Al, for the gift. James, did you want to maybe take that one?
Sure, I will. I'm sorry, I'm just readjusting my volume because the water is super loud.
That's okay.
Okay, so the difference between oppositional defiance disorder and PDA, which is sometimes referred to as persistent demand for autonomy, or persistent drive for autonomy, or pathological demand avoidance. Okay, so there's a number of differences between these two things, right? One of those major differences is that ODD, or oppositional defiant disorder, is an official diagnosis that, like a mental health
Hi,
disorder,
Jinx.
that is listed in the DSM-5, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. And so there's a lot of sort of recognition of that. There's a reasonable, I would say, a reasonable amount of understanding about it, as it's, you know, seen relatively frequently, and you know, a lot of professionals and a lot of teachers and educational types will sort of know what that is. PDA, on the other hand, is a lot less commonly known about. It's not an official diagnosis. You can't be diagnosed with PDA. It is, at the moment, considered to be a particular profile of autism, although there's some questioning over is it necessarily its own unique presentation separate from autism and just often comorbid to autism. Is it the thing about PDA is that because the research on it is still relatively new, and our knowledge of it is still emerging, there's some broad unknowns within the literature. It's one of these things where the clinical knowledge, the feet on the ground therapy, and obviously people with PDA know a lot more about it than the researchers do at this point, because there's a bit of a delay between the real world and research. Okay, so with that preamble out of the way, ODD is
Thank you for the subscribe, David.
Hooray!
Hooray!
Is for a long time was thought to be a
Thank you, Jinx.
subset of ADHD, but it is often comorbid with ADHD. And it's effectively where someone has a lot of difficulty with following instruction, not because of confusion or forgetfulness or difficulty keeping track of things, but because the request or the requirement to follow instructions, especially from authority figures, is often met with anger and defiance and oppositional kind of behavior. Something that's normally seen in children first. It's usually very obvious there. And a lot of these kids with ODD are often, unfortunately, labeled as like bad or disobedient children, which is not necessarily the case. So it's it's also a pretty controversial diagnosis, because getting diagnosed with ODD sort of can often pigeonhole a child with that label of being bad or not very agreeable, right? Which is a problem in the school system. PDA, on the other hand, is more of an anxiety response to the perceived threat of loss of control, right? So PDA can be triggered not just by like a PDA response, which might be one of extreme distress, it might be one of anger, it might be a response of playfulness or cheekiness that distracts from a particular demand. And those demands don't actually have to necessarily exist in a sense. They can just be perceived on the part of the PDA, which is often how people with PDA are sort of described.
Hooray!
Thank you for sharing the live, Frank. Hooray!
So you get these situations where, you know, you might ask your PDA partner, for example, "Hey, what do you want to have for dinner?" Which is a pretty reasonable question.
Is it?
But
Is it really?
Well, statistically, yeah, it is. But the problem is that it can be absolutely perceived as a threat, because there is an inherent demand within that question for an immediate answer, to have a definitive opinion, to know what it is that you want to eat, to possibly transition out of a task that you were already engaged in. there's any number of potential demands that may or may not exist that are there, right? And so it's a fairly innocuous question that a lot of people would be able to answer with ease, even if the answer is, "Oh, I'm not really sure. What do you feel like?" Which is obviously always frustrating when anyone hears that. But instead of being able to answer that question, there's a huge autonomic central nervous system, sympathetic nervous system response, where effectively someone almost has a panic response to the perceived loss of control or loss of autonomy that demand is creating. And that can result in a really, sometimes it may be even an explosive response. But the thing is that that demand, that perceived demand, can come from all kinds of places. It can come from someone's own body, right? The perceived demand of registering that you are tired and maybe you want to go to bed. But if your brain interprets that as a demand, then suddenly that can be really difficult. The need to go to the bathroom, the need to eat, and to if someone's hungry, that can be a problem as well. So whereas with oppositional defiance disorder, it's almost certainly always triggered by specific instructions, almost always from someone who's perceived to be an authority. So there's some debate at the moment about, is ODD actually just PDA? Right now, the jury is still out on that. It could be, but at the moment they do seem to be two unique and separate things.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the differences.
Difference, yeah.
I think.
Okay, so next few questions, nice and easy. What's the bell noise? It's the game just indicating that a particular section's been cleaned. I have turned it way down. Who's Jessica, and why did she let that truck get so filthy? We may find out, Jozo. We may find out as the story in the game develops. And my first time here, what's with the game? What's its relevance? It's just like a nice, chill, calm, relaxing game that's like enjoyable to play while we're sort of answering questions, and that a lot of people find relaxing to watch and can help them concentrate. It's just an extra little background stimulation, which can help autistics and ADHDers focus a little bit more when someone's talking. Yeah.
Certainly makes it easier for us to answer questions while also having
One at a
something to
time.
do
Yes.
with
Yeah. Yeah.
questions.
Yes. Okay. How would someone ask those kinds of questions to someone with PDA in order to avoid or reduce a reactive response?
That's a really good question. So I guess the first thing to acknowledge is you probably can't do it perfectly, right? It is not necessarily possible to guarantee that you're always going to be able to avoid the perception of a demand, because it just it's
that
not always about what you've said.
Hooray!
There are ways you can make it
hooray.
easier, but
Um,
it's so part of it's about, yes, we should try. Absolutely, we should try to avoid demands, but to try to go easy on yourself and recognize you can say it all the right ways,
Hooray!
but you might
Hooray.
still
Thank you for sharing the
have that
live.
same response, and that's not inherently your fault, right? It's going to happen sometimes. Try to roll with it if you can.
Yeah, and it also like depends on like the person's
Hooray!
even like meltdown cycle, like where they're at in their meltdown cycle. Like if because this often co-occurs with autism, and in some cases PDA is considered a subset of autism. Thank you for sharing the live, Drew. And if there's going to be a difference in the person's threshold for demands depending on like if they're having a good day or if they're perhaps on the verge or mid meltdown.
Yeah, that's also very true.
Hooray!
Toggle the pins on these.
So in terms of like, but to answer that question, because there are answers to that question, I guess the other thing we need to acknowledge is that the answers to this are very individual, because what works for one PDA might not work for another one. Like I know that I've met people
Hooray!
who respond really well and who don't necessarily get their PDA triggered when they are asked, "Hey, would you like to do something?" As opposed to, "Can you do something?" Um, and the thought process for those people is, "Oh yes, well, yeah, I would like to." Doesn't mean I necessarily need to do it right now, but that seems to circumvent a PDA response for those individuals. That doesn't necessarily work for everyone.
Hooray! We did the job.
And when that's the case, then it's a question of like, okay, cool. So what else could we use there? It might be that giving someone sort of, and this can feel a little bit weird, especially when you're communicating with an autistic person who may not typically appreciate or easily be able to decode more passive sort of statements. But rather than saying, "Hey, um, it's hey, it's time for dinner. Stop what you're doing, come have dinner." Um, it might be something like, it's really good to have dinner.
It is good to
And
have dinner.
That is good to have dinner. Or, in the case of like, "Hey, what do you want to eat?" It might be more like, "Hey, you like, not," and you wouldn't necessarily give someone options in the sense of, "Hey, do you want lasagna or do you want chicken curry?" But you might say, "Hey, you like lasagna and chicken curry." Um, and they might say, "Yeah, I do like both those things, but I really feel like lasagna tonight." Like, hey, cool. There's the answer to your question. Um, so, and I think sometimes it can feel a little bit strange to modify your language this way because one, it's not very it's not very intuitive. When you're interacting with someone who's autistic who may not like sort of more roundabout or less direct communication. But sometimes that direct communication can trigger a PDA response, and so maybe the better idea is to go for what almost feels like passive aggressive, but it's not passive aggressive. It's helping them to circumvent an automatic nervous system response that they don't want either. PDA is, if you think it's frustrating, person like trying to communicate with
My
someone with
game's
PDA.
frozen. Is yours?
No, not at all.
Is the level loaded?
I mean, I'm still on the truck.
Oh, the game may have frozen.
Oh no, you're moving again.
Oh, ta-da! Oh, ta-da! It's Tamagotchi time. So for those of you who have not joined the streams before, every 10,000 TikTok likes is Tamagotchi time, where all of us, so us on the stream and in the chat, do an act of self-care. Just to remind us to take care of ourselves while we're doing this. So I'm going to be drinking some water for my Tamagotchi time. Let me know what you're doing for your Tamagotchi time. And the theory is it's like kind of taking care of a Tamagotchi, which is like a little kid's pet toy in the 90s and early 2000s that you'd like feed and
Yes,
take
if
care
if
of.
you're
And
if
that
you're
it's
if
like
you're a
more
filthy
amusing to
millennial
take care
like
of
us, you
a
might admit.
yeah, it's more amusing to take care of a Tamagotchi than yourself. I might have to restart the game, hey.
Yeah, fair
I
enough.
think my game's bugging
That's
out.
okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Let me
Weirdly, mine is like a-okay. But yeah, let's restart.
power simulator. Oh, my computer is not happy. Hey.
So I'll just carry on answering that question. So yes, you can try to make it a little bit more playful, perhaps. Sometimes turning it into a competition. Hey, I bet I can. Hey, I bet I can get. I bet I can. Get my school bag packed before you put your school uniform on. Because often there's like a fun competitive element that can make things a bit easier. Alternatively, you can
Good Tamagotchi time, everyone.
again quick time I got time. You can also give someone like those alternatives, but do them as do them sort of like more sort of categorical general statements. Hey, it's oh, it's really good to have dinner. it's really good to drink a glass of water. Modeling behavior can sometimes be really helpful. If you know someone who, for example, struggles to keep themselves hydrated, you can help them to recognize the necessity of drinking water by sort of going, I'm really thirsty. Just sort of muse out loud about the sensation. Oh, wow, my mouth's really dry and my throat kind of hurts. I think I should have a glass of water. I'm going to have a nice, cool, refreshing glass of water, and that's really going to help to hydrate my body and make me feel a lot better. And it feels really silly to do that. But it can really work. The trick is to find things that work for your PDA, right? For the person in your life who struggles with PDA. And there's different ways you can do it, and it's going to work differently for every person. So you experiment and find things that work. And don't beat yourself up too much if the same thing doesn't always work twice in a row. That doesn't mean it's a bad strategy. It just means it didn't work in that moment. Other times, there might be other things that just don't work for some people, and that's okay too.
All right, I just need to restart one more time, peoples. Okay. There's some good
We can also
examples.
always
What I'd
switch
like to
over
also
to-
add to that is like adding playfulness and what's the word, novelty, playfulness and novelty into how you're engaging with the PDA. So for example, like making something more of a game or a competition, make it a little bit more fun, make it a little bit more dopamine inducing. So instead of like, taking medication, it's like, I bet I can take my meds faster than you can take your meds. And that tends to like not only help provide a little bit of extra motivation, but can help like bypass or overcome a pathological demand avoidance response. But again, it's going to be like very individual as to like what works for the PDA that you're supporting in your life, or what works for you if you're a PDA.
I think what's really cool about this as well, and this is something that I think is really important to know, is that these are not tricks. Like the PDA can absolutely know what you're doing, right? They can absolutely be aware of the trick that you're playing on them to get them to do the thing, and yet it still doesn't trigger the response. Which is really awesome, because like it's literally you. That's why it isn't passive aggression. It is you helping by bypassing the perceived demand.
Yeah, because
and
like
therefore bypassing the threat response that someone's experiencing.
often for a PDA, like it's like the PDA response is deeply inconvenient and unpleasant, and on board with like they can be on board with ways to bypass that and working out like what works for you and what doesn't.
So like I said, the PDA response seems to be an activation of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight mechanism. It's an intense anxiety response. People with PDA are not, they're not defined
PDA
by
stands for
choice.
pathological demand avoidance. It's considered by many as a
sort of a
potential
presentation
sub-presentation of
or a profile
autism.
or a
Yeah.
subtype.
But it, like, our understanding is like very early in terms of research around PDA, and our understanding of it is still quite limited.
So it's something that's still the understanding of this is still very much emerging.
And some do consider it potentially a trauma response, but yeah, it's still research being conducted.
Yeah, we're still figuring all that out.
Okay. Next one, really easy one, is this Power Washing Simulator 2? Yes, it is. Joseph, maybe you can answer this one.
Yo.
How did you feel when you found out you were autistic and ADHD, and did you adjust to it quickly?
I mean, at first there was like I didn't find out until I was what? How old am I now? 28, nearly 29. Good lord. Maybe 26-ish. And at first I was in denial because it just seemed like
Oh, this just became harder. All right, go.
everything I did. Oh my lord.
Oh my.
Everything I did, someone would say, "Oh, that's autism." I'm like, it's not autism. Everyone does this. It can't be autism.
Mm.
Everyone does this. Over
Yeah.
time, I kind of it wasn't a super slow process, I guess. Although it's different for everyone. You do kind of realize, like, oh no, not everyone watches Lord of the Rings twice a year, annually, religiously, because it's the greatest
Extended
film.
edition, all in a
It's not-
day.
I didn't realize
Oh
it
my
wasn't
goodness!
another edition.
I just realized something I need to talk about to you later, Joe. That's fine. Go on.
Please. Not only that, though, but like little things like for me, it was like hair on the ground, particularly in the bathroom. For me, like I thought that was just a difficulty for everyone. But yeah, like over time, you sort of do slowly start to realize, and then like a lot of dot connecting too, as to that's why I may have reacted that way to this certain thing, or that's why maybe I always melt down when this thing happens, or that's why I leave work every day, absolutely exhausted because I'm sitting under the fluorescent light for 8 to 12 hours. Just little things like that. Lots of kind of realizing what's draining your battery.
Mm.
If you don't know already, some people already kind of come into that process.
Would you say you experienced grief, or that wasn't your like personal experience of it?
Not particularly, but like
Yeah.
I was in a fortunate enough position to kind of like never have been grilled for engaging in special interests or like through school. I think I very much was lucky enough to get through by being able to make people laugh. Like bullying wasn't a huge issue for me, though I wouldn't say it didn't exist. But yeah, like I was kind of fortunate enough to not experience the grief stage, but it is 100% a thing.
Yeah, like I absolutely experienced like quite a long period of grief myself, but I think
Yeah.
like we had very different
you might
social
be able to
experiences growing up.
speak about that.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, Joe, I cut you off. Continue.
No, the only thing I was going to say add to that was, for me, there was a lot of like, lots of moments when I think about socializing and like it really being, at the time I thought I enjoyed it. In hindsight, it was really just a means to an end to get someone to do my special interests with me, which would happen occasionally, but not nearly as much as I wanted it to. Outside of that, and like really, like I really only enjoyed one-on-one interactions, group interactions. Like I did them, but I don't think I comprehended at the time how much I really hated them.
Yeah, because like you just had to
Does that
do
answer the
them, right?
question?
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, it certainly took and like it's still like an ongoing process, almost like with any kind of grief, like it still hits you in waves. But I think to get sort of the bulk of the adjustment took a couple of years. Can you just sorry, James, just took a couple of years. And like even still years later, like look back and like, oh yeah, that's exactly why that happened. Oh my gosh, like all these realization moments. And you end up like asking yourself a lot of questions, like how would my life have been different, like had I known earlier. But I think what especially if you're like millennial or older, like that's a very tricky question to ask because it's even like if you were for a lot of the high masking presentations, like you could have been put in front of an assessor as a child and not been diagnosed, simply because when you were a child, like we didn't have as much of an understanding about autism, particularly high masking presentations, and the diagnostic criteria was different back then. And even had you gotten diagnosed, the supports were very different back then, and even like the type of discrimination you would have potentially faced different. And so for like a lot of us, like millennial or older, it's very much a case of like born like a couple of decades too early. But also fortunate enough to be one of the first generations of people who could get diagnosed as a high masker. Leah, can you grab that, please? Yeah. James, those who mask really well as a child, do they have a hard time keeping up that masking as an adult?
Yes. The short answer is yes. The question around it is, when does that necessarily kick in? Because almost certainly, yeah, someone is going to have someone who is very high masking as a child. So here's the thing about the masking, right? Is it's a conscious choice. At a certain point, it's a conscious choice to hide or to suppress behaviors or aspects of self or uh, like your own interests and your own natural responses um, in some way, right? So that you can gain the acceptance and maybe even the approval. It's not unfair to say of the people around you, and that starts as a deliberate choice, usually very early on in childhood, because very early on, children who have the capacity to mask realize um, this is what I need to do in order to get along with and coexist with the people around me. This is what I need to do to be able to get the social support, social contact, social acceptance that I need as a human being. Um, Problem is, it starts as a conscious choice, and then you do it so often that you don't always realize that you're doing it. That behavior becomes almost second nature. Um, and even though it remains to be some level of deliberate, it becomes very hard to turn off because it becomes almost habitual. Um, and because it's not a necessarily a natural set of behaviors, it requires cognitive effort. It takes a certain amount of cognitive load to keep it going. And over the years, that becomes exhausting. Um, and so people will usually start to struggle to maintain that mask. And mask is not necessarily a fair term, I'm starting to think, because that implies that it's completely inauthentic, and I don't think
Hooray!
that's actually the case,
Hooray!
because the mask
Thank you for the
that people
follow.
put up often does actually include authentic aspects of self. It's just filtered in a really specific way. So potentially filtering is maybe a better way of thinking about it, but I digress. Um, the way that the toll that it takes increases over time, and increases based on like the additional cognitive load or cognitive pressure that someone is under. So people might be able to mask at school. You see a lot of high masking children who can sort of perform well and mask successfully at school, and then every day come home and have a huge meltdown when they get home from school, when they are finally safe enough in their home where they're supported by their parents, hopefully, um, where they might suddenly have a really huge meltdown because they are sort of safe enough to be able to unmask in those moments. And also, there's less demand for them to be completely masked at home. So there's that. You might see kids who need to mask at home as well, and then as they start to get into high school, when the social pressures become even more confusing and difficult, then that can be a problem for them, and then they might have more difficulty maintaining that mask. A lot of adults, when they are faced with the pressure of having to work full time within late stage capitalism, having to um, maintain jobs
Hooray!
with the cost of living
Hooray! Thank you for the
crisis
share.
and pay for everything and raise children and all that sort of stuff. And all of these difficulties that people naturally have in the world, that can be absolutely a factor in causing someone to have difficulty maintaining the mask as they get older. It's going to look different for everyone. Some people might never successfully be able to unmask if certainly without help, because it might not always be obvious to the individual even what part of how they behave is part of their mask or part of their filter, and what part isn't.
Um, I think, like, just to add to that, it is one reason why, if you are wanting to like either yourself or get yourself or your child assessed for autism, and you believe that there's masking present, it's important that you go to somewhere to be assessed that is familiar with high masking presentations, right? Because with a very classic autism assessment for a child, you often get observations from the parents and you get observations from the teacher. And if your child is a high masker and is one of those children that masks very heavily, like while at school, you're going to get really dramatically different reports from like between teacher and parent. Whereas if you're very familiar with assessing high masking presentations, like that's almost one of the things you look out for there. Like, okay, cool, why is there such a huge discrepancy between the teacher report and parent report, and could autism be a possible explanation for that? Could high masking autism be a possible explanation?
Very relevant for ADHD as well. One of the criteria for ADHD is that the symptoms are present in multiple areas. That has to be present in school as well as at home. But masking can occur with ADHD as well. It's not autistic masking, but masking behaviors can occur with ADHD as well. And so, you get some kids who are able to force themselves to manage their behavior and force themselves to pay attention at school. And so the teachers are none the wiser. Or they might not be very disruptive. They might just be inattentive, but bright enough to, either get good or even just average marks. And therefore, the teachers don't know they're a problem, don't know the kid has a problem, and don't view the child as a problem. And so, you get the teacher observations, and the teacher observations are largely
Me too,
not
Callum. Me
very
too.
insightful.
Hooray! Thank you for sharing the live, Zab.
Not very insightful. There we go.
Thank you for the gift, Leah.
Whereas maybe that tells us something rather than it being an indication that the symptoms aren't present. Maybe it actually is telling us something about whether or not ADHD or autism is present. So, but yes, absolutely agreeing with Tash. If you're concerned that masking is a factor, ask the place that you're going to take your child or yourself. Are they familiar with high masking presentations, and are they able to account for that in their assessment process? Because that's necessary. It's an important part of understanding that. And I'm going to point out that if you're an adult looking to get assessed, there's a really good chance that some level of masking is involved, because if you were a very low masking person, then you would likely have been assessed as a child. So if you are not being assessed if you haven't been assessed as a child, if you're only starting to approach this as an adult, then there's a really good chance masking is a factor, and you should be inquiring about that when you approach a clinic or a professional about assessment.
All right. Next one is, are you able to talk about anger rumination?
I am. Tash, would you like to? I realize that I talk a lot and have gone on a bit, and want to make sure that everyone's getting a chance.
Well,
did you want to?
Rumination and getting stuck in thought loops is more common amongst autistics and ADHDers than like when compared to the general population. And I can certainly talk about it a little bit on the neurological level, because a very one of the main differences in the human brain between autistics and ADHD as compared to the rest of the general population is the way that like neurological pruning, like how your brain like prunes its own neural pathways like during development, and so with like a non-autistic, non-ADHDer, your brain has all these pathways of neurons, brain cells, and they're like this big highway system. And as in the first couple of years of your life, like those highways develop, grow, sort of branch out like a tree, and then what generally happens with like a non-autistic, ADHD is your brain starts pruning these, refining these highways, and that process is disrupted in autistic and ADHD brains, and so you can often get sort of like a are you posing me for no reason?
You had a fly on you.
I had a fly on me. Okay, I understand. And you can often get these like especially particularly in the prefrontal cortex, you can get sort of instead of these long streamlined highways, it's more lots of little branches, lots of little pathways, and very strong research hypotheses at the moment is that that particular change contributes to rumination because it lends itself towards thought cycles getting stuck, getting circled. Ta-da! It's Tamagotchi time. All right. So for those who are not familiar with Tamagotchi time, haven't joined us before, every 10,000 TikTok likes, we all do something, one little act of self-care. I'm going to be drinking some water right now. Let me know in chat what you're doing for your Tamagotchi time. Let me just pin that. Wonderful.
I'm taking a second to pet a cat.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, your voice is just loud. It came out of nowhere.
um,
It's like I'm playing Backrooms all over again.
and
Not bad.
and so in those kind of anger rumination, that can also occur quite frequently during meltdowns as well. And particularly when you have aspects of ADHD, like having experiencing greater difficulty, like shifting your attention. It can be very difficult to break out of that. And on top of that, other neurological differences like having, on average, ADHDers tend to have a larger amygdala, a larger hippocampus. That controls like your anxiety and anger and sort of fight or flight response, right? And it can lead to
So it
like
has a big influence on those things, yeah.
yeah, and those neurological changes can lead to like quite significant differences in the way you process those feelings, and you can have larger anger and anxiety
Hooray!
reactions that are more intense and take longer to dissipate. I find it very hard to get out of rumination, especially after a fight with someone. Hooray! Thank you for the follow. Yeah, and so and a lot of the techniques used for breaking out of like anger rumination and rumination in general, a lot of techniques that work for like neurotypicals or holistics, like they don't necessarily work for neurodivergents. And what I like, just this might not work for you, but like some general tips and advice for working with anger and rumination when you're autistic or ADHD is using like techniques that soothe that neurodivergence, like using techniques unique to your neurodivergence. So, for example, one commonly used technique suggested for like within neurotypical therapy is like examining your thoughts and challenging the thoughts and the logic behind those thoughts, which and questioning them and doing a bit of a reality check on them, for example. But that can be very difficult when you're having like larger anger or anxiety responses, or your ability to regulate is reduced, right? And so instead, what can work is things like stimming. So stimming, fidgeting can be very soothing for autistics and ADHDers, and can basically give your brain a new loop to focus on, performing like the same repetitive motion. Gives your brain something else to be soothed by and to chew on. And another technique you can use is like taking advantage, perhaps, of hypersensitivity to sensory input. So, say, for example, if you are like a common neurotypical advice would be, if you're feeling angry, have a cold shower.
Hooray!
But a lot of neurodivergent people enjoy having boiling hot showers, extremely boiling hot showers, which like not literally
Hell
boiling,
yeah.
yeah, which
Scalding.
like create, yeah, scalding, which like really create this big strong sensory input. And so it can be like, technically can actually be the opposite. Like what can help is putting on a boiling hot shower to uh help use that intense sensory input to help you break out of that thought cycle. Yeah, engaging
We
in
have
a
more
special
else that
interest,
Do
but please,
not scold yourself.
engaging in a special
No,
interest, like that's
That's
sorry.
just the complete opposite of what I was about to say, so I want to let that go. Yes, do not scold yourself.
Yes, do not
No, no,
scold yourself.
no, quite seriously. I mean that because, like, I don't want people to take things
Too
sort of
literally, that
literal
yeah, that was
and too
a
literally.
metaphoric
Like,
scolding.
yeah, like
Please don't
do
burn
not
yourself.
do things that are going to be harmful. Um, but pain is not inherently bad and can be grounding in those situations. But doing things that are going to damage your body is not
Yeah, so
necessarily
for
a good
example, if
idea.
you do have
So,
POTS,
by all means,
likely a
yes,
hot
an
shower might not be
extremely
the
hot
ideal.
shower. Well, that too. But yes, an extremely hot shower that other people might find uncomfortably hot could be absolutely the right way to go. But no, do not literally scold yourself because that's going to be very bad.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
yeah, so just
That's what I was about to say.
yeah, and Joe, Split Peas suggested like a really good option there, like engaging in a special
Hooray!
interest. I believe that's something that you do to help with big feelings is special interest lock in.
100%. Yeah. I often. Oh, that's mildly off topic. No, a little background. Uh, difficult like periods of time. Thankfully, I find they're usually short. Is when I'm kind of in between like special interests or hyperfixations.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm like constantly just trying to experiment with new things and hoping one of them latches on, and always guaranteed eventually one of them does. But yeah, really, yeah, they're just a good way of not like turning off. I guess lots of people say turning off the brain, but it's not quite that. It's just a good thing to do to kind of ground yourself whilst processing emotions of whatever the hell has happened that's kind of caused you to need to process emotions.
yeah,
Um,
it's almost a form. It can almost be a form of mindfulness, really. Which is not, mindfulness is not inherently meditation, and it's not necessarily, um, uh, it's not meditation. It's not a spiritual practice, and it's not
I,
just sort of sitting there thinking about nothing. Um, it is a form of very close attention, very focused concentration, but in a really expansive and specific way, right? And so, engaging with a special interest or hyperfixation may help to regulate, not just because it's enjoyable, but because it can also be a form of mindfulness, allowing you to,
Hi
yeah,
H.
process your feelings while focusing on, for example, a video game where you
Uh,
clean objects
you don't have to
with a with
call. You don't
a
have to
with a
call us
power
out like
extension.
that. You don't have to call us out like that.
No, I do.
Okay, never mind then. My mistake. Um.
I'm
uh.
professionally obliged to, in fact.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. Uh. Jess Y says, I'm getting called a lot to pick my son up from school due to him being unable to regulate. Um, yeah, and like that's I'm not sure if your son is diagnosed, but that's like a very common issue when it comes to um, like therapy being provided to neurodivergent children, because like those techniques for regulating are going to be different than um, like what the average child needs to regulate. Like things like breathing techniques can be helpful. Um, like sort of the standard like take a breath, go for a short walk, but often you need to combine that with like autistic and ADHD specific techniques, or it just um like frequently doesn't cut it for a neurodivergent child. Um, yeah, and
Not
that's
not
what.
to, not to mention that, like, a lot of issues, like or rather an issue that a lot of um, autistic people and ADHDers have is issues with proprioception and issues with interoception. So not necessarily being aware of the signals that the body is sending. The body is still absolutely sending those signals, but they may not be consciously aware of them. And so a breathing technique, right? And breathing techniques or biofeedback, they absolutely work in terms of what they actually do, but the understanding of what they actually are doing is not always there, and they're not always properly explained. I have definitely found in my work, in my therapy work, that there's a lot of autistic people who respond really, really well to breathing, to something as fairly maybe mundane or even maybe feeling a little bit banal as a breathing exercise when the actual biology of it is properly explained. And where you are able to get someone to tap into the sensations that are occurring as a result of it, and assuming that those sensations are not distressing, they can be really helpful. But that doesn't mean they're going to be helpful for every single person.
Yeah, so like for me on like a an average day, breathing techniques, yeah, good. They like give me, a 10% buff, so to speak, to calmness, right? Like it helps. Um, but if I try like a breathing technique like mid meltdown, like good luck. I wish my brain
I
the
mean, I
best of
think that's
luck in calming myself down.
I mean,
With
I
like
guess that,
breathing
that sort of
techniques
ties
alone.
into a
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, and this is the thing, right? Like a breathing technique is it can be really, really useful. For example, to help to engage your parasympathetic nervous system, to help
Hooray!
tone down an anxiety
Hooray! Thank you
response,
for the
not
share.
turn it off, tone it down, not deactivate it, just help to lessen the intensity. A meltdown is not just heightened anxiety. A meltdown is a unique um, autism-specific neurological event, right? Like something very specific is happening there, and a bit of deep breathing is going to do probably very little in that respect.
Yeah.
So
Um, and
different tools for different situations,
and
and autistic people
masking
experience very different situations to the
masking
general
comforting
population.
behaviors, it begins from like it can begin
Hooray!
um like toddlerhood, so to speak. Thank you for the follow. Um, uh, like any behaviors that like a child was like socially punished for, like even like in a subtle kind of way, like experience any kind of social rejection for, um, or disciplined in any
Why
way,
are you
like
doing that? That's so weird.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Stop
Don't you
moving
want to
like
do
that.
this instead?
Um,
Like, yeah, yeah.
there's lots of things. Some of them have been intended entirely good-naturedly, and maybe even might be completely innocuous in and of themselves. But other times, some people have experienced really quite severe punishments, maybe very disproportionate punishments, um, because some people's stimming behavior might draw unwanted attention or unwanted scrutiny. Um, from the perspective of someone who's just nearby or with the
Hi,
autistic
Mona.
person
Good to
or
see
child.
you.
So, hey, Mono.
I hope you're going well, and
So,
I hope your family's going well.
yeah.
But yeah, sorry, back on topic. The example I use like quite frequently for this is quite a personal one, right? So like in preschool and when I was a very young child, I would get in trouble for hogging the swing at the playground. That's the only thing. If I wanted to, like, if there was a play equipment, there was a swing. The only thing I wanted to do was go on the swing. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just wanted to swing on the swing. Um, uh, because that was like very soothing in like a sensory way. But there was like social disciplining because of that, right? Like, oh, that is selfish. Um, you have to let the other kids have a turn. When it was sort of like more like it wasn't just me having a turn. It was like a little autistic kid desperately trying to like sensory soothe, right? But thinking
Trying to
back,
regulate. And
yeah. But like thinking back to examples like that, it can help me work out as a late diagnosed adult, how do I soothe myself as an adult? Because you bet that me, you know, those like suspended like egg chairs, right? Where it's like just like
Oh,
a
yeah.
little, yeah, that is super regulating. Like that's super regulating as an adult. And I worked that out by thinking about like what did I like constantly do as a child that I no longer do as an adult because of circumstances like that. And that's like part of the mask. And so being able to work that out and do that and perform that again as a regulating technique like is part of like my personal unmasking process there.
And one of the difficult aspects about this is like about that specific example as well, is that the daycare teachers who were telling you, you know, not to effectively, to monopolize the swing set. From their perspective, they weren't wrong to be giving you that instruction because it is important to teach children to
Hooray!
share
Thank you.
and to to
Thank
take
you for
and
the
to
follow,
take
Jess.
turns. Like that's important pro-social messaging. It's important to teach children that. The issue was that they didn't realize what that behavior was. It wasn't Tash playing on the swings because Tash really liked the swings and didn't want to let anyone else use them because they were being selfish.
Yeah, and
It
it
was
wasn't me
Tash
like
using
not
the
caring
swings
about
to try
others
and
either.
regulate.
Yeah, it was more like I need this right now. You need to let me have my swing time, please.
Like
Thank you, Jellybean Joe.
I'm a distressed child. I need this to regulate. But that's not what it was recognized as. And so the behavior was a very healthy, soothing behavior. Was then punished and then maybe even taken away for a long time, right? Because as you might have learned, okay, cool, I'm not allowed to do things to help myself. I'm not allowed to regulate. I'm not allowed to do this to regulate. I've got to find other secret, socially acceptable ways to do it.
Hooray!
Hooray! Thank you for the gift, Tage. Yeah, and then like another example is like spinning in a spinny chair. Like, oh my god, don't play on the chair, and it was just so hard to not play on the chair because it was so soothing. It was so regulating.
Again, there's, and this is not neurotypical apologetics, but like sometimes these things need to be balanced with like safety concerns. Like if there's a concern like
Yeah.
you're spinning on that chair, you're gonna fall over and possibly hurt yourself. Like, okay, cool. What's a good alternative then?
Yes,
Right?
yeah, like how
It's
can
not
you
don't
get
do it
that
at all.
same
It's
input
not a
without
safe alternative.
yeah, without there being that risk. Because on that
And
note,
so for example,
Joseph here did in fact crack his head open spinning on a spinny chair as a child. And it was only a little bit my fault.
so-
Did I?
You did, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds. I was questioning the validity of that story, but that makes complete sense. Knowing it's your fault. It's like the time you threw a cricket bat at my head.
Okay, we don't need to talk about that.
Anyway.
But ta-da! It's Tamagotchi
Look,
time.
in fairness, Joseph, I think that anyone who's met you has at some point wanted to throw a cricket bat at your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Ah,
Tash actually
okay.
did it.
You just have a very well.
Didn't mean to hit you. I just meant to scare you,
Tasha's
and
a
I was like
pioneer in a lot
8,
of
to be
areas,
fair.
so-
I am a pioneer, thank you. But yes, it's Tamagotchi time. So every 10,000 TikTok likes, it's Tamagotchi time, where everyone does one act of self-care. I'm going to be drinking some water. Let me know in chat what you're doing for your one act of self-care. It can be small. It can be like stimming or pacing or getting a bite to eat or having your meds. And the idea is that like it's like you're taking care of a little Tamagotchi and you're pressing like the feed button or the shower button or
Or maybe even the play button. I'm going to reach out and I'm going to pat this cat that's sitting next to me.
yeah.
He is a cool guy,
Good job, everyone. I
Facing
love
the
reading
same-
all your Tamagotchi times.
facing in the same direction as me because he wants to be a part of my life.
And this is as much for me as it is for you because I get so into my special interest topics, one of them being neurodivergence, that I forget to take care of myself. And so really,
Yes.
by liking the live, you're taking care of me. And I appreciate that. Thank you, chat. What's a little cricket bat among friends? Okay. All right. Actually, while we're talking about this, I'm just going to skip a question, but I'm going to go back to the other questions. Okay, so if you've asked a question, I have pinned it. It's just on the list. I was just wondering if you have any advice for making friends as an adult. Yeah, so if you're a neurodivergent person, hooray! Thank you for the follow there. If you're a neurodivergent person, I'd say most of the time, you're going to have more social success with fellow neurodivergents than with neurotypicals. Um, and and a lot of that is due to like the differences in communication and the way, like for example, autistics tend to have interest-based relationships, or relationships that are based around
Hooray!
a special interest or hyperfixation. And it's very hard to maintain relationships with others when you don't currently share a hyperfixation, right? Like you might not talk to someone for 5 years, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're playing the same game again, or playing the same sport, and you're chatting every day again. Thank you for the follow. And I completely lost my train of thought. It might be actually medication time for me.
You're not talking to someone for 10 years and then boom, you're playing.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
same
sorry,
game
making
again.
friends as an adult. Yes. Oh yeah. So you're going to be inherently like more socially. A lot of like not everyone, but a lot of us are going to be more socially successful with other neurodivergents. But it's very hard because a lot of neurodivergents don't like to socialize necessarily. Or find it very difficult to
Just not in the same
go
way.
to
as-
not in the same way, not in like a neurotypical sense, and find it very difficult to like go out and leave the house and speak to new people. And
and they might not want to go to parties, and they might not want to go to pubs and clubs and other ministries of sound.
I don't think I've actually ever
Um,
been to a club, and let's keep it that way, quite
I
frankly.
have. It's awful. Don't.
Okay,
Can't recommend
wonderful,
it. I can't.
fantastic.
Not
Love your
recommend
work.
it enough.
It just sounds like there's lots of people and it's very loud, and I don't drink alcohol, and it's very confusing. There's lots of flashing lights.
Oh,
Yeah.
look. I used to.
Hooray!
I used to be a regular at certain goth nightclubs in Sydney back in the day, in the early 2000s. And there's elements of it that are fine, but also there was definitely a time limit on how long I could spend there.
Yeah.
Because it would get very overwhelming very quickly.
But yeah.
But making friends as an adult. Sorry, I've gotten distracted by.
Oh, you're right. But quick plug. I have found that on my streams, a lot of people were like finding connection with other people, like in chat. It's just like very like-minded, or sort of like similar presentation, kind of neurodivergence. Like getting along and connecting really well. And so what I've done is I've made a Discord server with basically it's a group of neurodivergent adults from chat and from the live, and like there's lots of different channels where we like share memes or talk about our special interests, and help connect with others and keep company that way. I want to make that very clear that it's like it's for adults. It does not have any association with Blackbird psychology. It's more of just like a personal
it's a purely social thing. It's not a
purely social thing.
space.
Yeah, it's not a therapeutic space. It's not like a mental health space. But it is like one avenue where you can connect with other neurodivergents. And there's a link if you would like to join the Discord. There's a link to that in my link tree on TikTok. And there's a link to it on my Twitch channel page as well. But anyway, back to the main point. Like socializing and making friends as a neurodivergent adult. You often want to look at your interests, like what are your current interests, and engage in some kind of interest group.
So I have a little something here that I think is that I end up talking about a lot in my individual therapy sessions with people who have a very similar question, who have the exact same question. And so I think I have something relevant here. So there are three.
Thank you, H.
Main, I guess you could call them pillars.
Taking my meds. Thank you, chat. Thank you, chat. Thank you, chat.
Three main pillars to forming friendships, right? And you need to have all three. Without all three, you will not successfully create a friendship, right? So they're not in any particular order, and they're all broadly equally important. So the first one is shared experiences. And this is where a shared experience of neurodivergence is really helpful, right? If you have shared experiences, and it doesn't have to be an exact one-to-one shared experience, but if you have shared experiences, as in you have similar cultural backgrounds, or you go to the same school, or a similar school, or you have the same neurotype or a similar neurotype, then you might better feel understood by another person, right? So that seems kind of
Thank you
that
for the
kind of makes
gifts,
sense
Jess.
when you say it out loud like
Hooray!
that.
Hooray!
The second thing that you need is, like Natasha was saying, shared interests. You gotta have something that you can actually talk to someone about. If you meet someone, if anyone, neurotypical, neurodivergent, whatever, if you meet someone and there's just nothing to talk about with them because you don't hold any of the same interests, then it's going to be really hard to form a friendship. It'll be really hard to have anything to talk about whatsoever. If I meet someone who is exclusively into camping and hiking and nature and like team sports. Good
Oh,
on
no
them.
way.
Like
More
look,
power
that
to you,
might
but
be a
no.
very cool and genuinely likable person, but I guarantee I will not really have a lot to say to that person in regards to like leisure activities. You know, there might be other shared interests that we might have, but it's not going to be talking about that. Um, but you need something that you can relate to another person on
Hooray!
that you can talk about. The third
Hooray! Thank
thing,
you for
and
sharing the
this is
live.
the hard part, especially for adults and especially for autistic adults and neurodivergent adults in general, is what sociologists refer to as, and this is one of my favorite words, propinquity. And what propinquity is repeated and fairly frequent contact. So it's really easy, or easier certainly, to make friends as a child because guess what? You're in class with someone every day from 9 till 3, Monday to Friday. And yeah, you can form a best friend within maybe a month and a half. There's time frames for how long it takes. Um, and when you're in high school,
Thank you,
you
Knox, for
might
the
have
Dragon
similar
Crown.
class. You might have same classes. You might be able to spend lunchtimes and recesses with people and catch up with them between classes and all that sort of stuff. And you probably will even see people on the weekend, maybe if you're that kind of person.
Oh, Knox! Knox, you're out of surgery. Sorry. Just 1 second. Sorry. Knox
Hello,
had.
Knox. How are you
Hi,
doing, Knox?
Knox!
Are you well?
Hey! Yeah, Knox had surgery earlier
Oh,
today.
you're right.
Best wishes, Knox. Everyone in chat give
Oh,
Knox best
glad
wishes.
that you survived. That was
I was a
really
waiter. It
unfortunate.
took me a minute to register who'd sent that. I was like, okay. Glad you're
I just
alive,
heard someone
Knox.
say Knox. I'm like, hang on a minute. My
Hey,
Knox senses are tingling.
wait a second. So it is really easy, or certainly easier to make friends as a younger person, as a child, as a teenager, because you
Hooray!
simply have guaranteed access.
Thank you for the follow,
Repeated,
Titanic.
guaranteed access to the people around you. University, similar. College, similar. Um, Work, kind of similar,
Hooray!
right? Because, but again, work is a little bit harder because you have
Hooray!
places
Thank you
to
for the
go.
follow.
And there's less people that you work with generally, and therefore less opportunities for shared experience and shared interests. Um, Look, you've got shared experiences with every single person on the planet. You drink the same liquids, you breathe the same gases, you have a need to sleep and eat food and to excrete, and cool, all of that. But that's not really enough. There needs to be enough that you can understand someone with. So,
That's all the kind of stuff I've spoken about in previous jobs, trying to
yeah,
make friends, but it never seemed to work.
no.
Wanted shared
Um,
experiences.
so it needs to be more specific. It needs to be more specific. Um, and then we start to get into, well, okay, so how do we create propinquity as an adult? You got to go where people are. Now, that doesn't, strictly speaking, mean you got to put yourself in the path of other people so that you can actually interact with them. Because
And for
that's
someone like
how you're
me,
going to.
that means online.
So that might mean online spaces, which absolutely can work, and that might be how you're better able to make friends. I'm going to point out that almost all, with the exception of 3 people, I would say, in my life, as friends who are not currently on this stream, um, I met through online communities that I was a part of in the early 2000s. And these are people who I went on to like share flats with. These are people who I've been to their weddings. One of them was a groomsman at my wedding. These are real, lasting, deep friendships. But you might struggle to meet people that you vibe with online, in real life, um, or as we used to say back in the day, in meat space. So like,
What?
it is.
Oh.
That's what we.
Oh, you
That's
mean
what we
like
would call it.
meeting as in like meeting people, not meat
That's what it was called.
as in animal or like
No,
food.
NEAT.
Okay, all right. I was like,
Jesus.
what?
I wouldn't want to imagine what that would be.
I think I just took something too literally
It's
just
real
then.
life.
Oh my gosh,
This is
another
just
Tamagotchi
like,
time already.
Yeah.
Not,
Oh,
not offline spaces.
I'm having some calories. Let me know what you're doing for your Tamagotchi time in chat.
So the point of all of this is to say, to make friends as an autistic
Bye.
adult,
Hi.
it's the same as making friends for anyone else. It's just the population of people that you want to try to connect to is probably going to be
Bye.
other neurodivergent people, or at least neurotypical people who are extremely cool about a lot of things. Because realistically, you're going to have some difficulties getting along with most, although far from all, most completely neurotypical people, right?
Unless you have a local
Now,
meat space.
so so that's the thing, right? It's shared interests, shared experiences, being around other people on a regular basis, like being able to. And by regular, I also mean frequent. Like it can't just be, oh, I see this person once a year. That's not enough. It needs to be fairly frequent. And you need to be doing stuff like being able to talk. And it can't just be sitting there not talking.
I'm muted. That's what it was.
You gotta
I
interact.
was like, why are you not letting me talk? It's because I was muted. You can hear me now,
Because
yes?
what I have to say is just super important.
It's so important, yeah.
So important. The people want to know.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted Whitney made an interesting comment there that I just want to speak on very quickly before going back to the question list. Hey, I'm autistic
Love that.
and my closer friends are neurotypical and sometimes I feel left out or too weird. Yeah, so I'd like to talk about that a little bit because it's very hard to explain. It is very hard to explain. But a lot of autistics and ADHDers experience this sort of unspoken othering by neurotypicals in social situations, right? Where it's like no one's necessarily saying anything or like has done anything specific, but there's sort of this indescribable sense that you're a bit different or being or that you're being left out or that you're not like in the loop or that like even though it's like your friend group you're not like in the friend group so to speak and
You might feel like a peripheral friend or a sometimes friend or a convenience friend.
yeah, and like they've even done some studies on that kind of effect, and like have shown that it's like it's very real. It's just the inherent differences between uh, like communication styles. There's just often this subconscious like othering that occurs that is like extremely sometimes friend yeah that's extremely hard to explain or describe and it's also very difficult when you're trying to explain to people like being believed and that's where like for example autistics have and ADHDs have higher rates of social anxiety uh than the general population but it's also what's labeled as like social anxiety or like rather a social anxiety disorder, sometimes isn't with autistics, right? Because it's like an anxiety disorder. I mean, it's disordered anxiety, right? It's anxiety at a like higher frequency or degree, like or occurring at a sensitivity that's not necessarily warranted for the situation. But it's very difficult because for a lot of autistics, like it is warranted for the situation. Like this is a very real thing that they're experiencing that they're powerless to change in a lot of cases. And like the anxiety is in fact like quite in proportion and reasonable for what's occurring. But because that phenomenon is so hard to explain, it's just like, oh, you have low confidence, you have an anxiety disorder, which may also be true, but in some cases it's not.
Can I just interrupt you quickly? I hate to. But
Yes. No, please.
with social anxiety disorder, one of the things that's really important to differentiate when you're doing a diagnostic assessment, because a lot of people have been told, "Oh, you have social anxiety disorder," and they may indeed experience anxiety in social situations. But like Tash said, it's not a disproportionate anxiety response based on
Leah, are you
an
able to
imagined
take
fear
care
of
of
being rejected.
that, please?
Take care of some things.
Yep.
It
Actually, wait,
is,
I can do it
in
here. I can
fact,
do it here. I got it, Leah. Don't worry.
very, very evidence-based fear based on like years of experience.
Yep.
But the thing is that with social, what we often see is that individuals, especially neurotypical individuals with social anxiety disorder, actually have quite typical social skills. Whereas someone who is neurodivergent and who experiences anxiety in social situations do not have typical social skills that are developed at the level we might expect for their sort of age and situation. In which case, there is a demonstrable difference in how uh, how good their social skills are that allows them, or rather that prevents them from being able to engage in um, engage in social relationships and contributes to their anxiety in social situations. And so, like, that's super relevant for diagnosticians
Hooray!
to be
Hooray!
aware
Thank you
of.
for the share, Whitney.
And I'm not sure that that's always the case.
Yeah.
Just something I wanted to, just something I felt the need to speak about.
Okay. Next one. This was done. Oh my god, this was said almost over half an hour ago. But you know, we're talking a lot. Doesn't it make you dizzy?
We're getting to it.
Yeah. Doesn't it make you dizzy using the nozzle like that? Now I know that's not a question, but I want to talk about that. So first of all, no. And second of all, this leads me on to talking about binocular vision disorder. So binocular vision disorder is disorder where your brain has difficulty basically consolidating the image from each eye. So, right, it takes the image from each eye and combines it into one picture. And binocular vision disorder is where your brain is struggling to do that for one reason or another. There's several different causes, right? And this is a really common co-occurrence with autism and ADHD. And one of the side effects of which is why I ended up here, is that you can often be made dizzier or experience motion sickness at much lower thresholds than people around you. Like, so things can more easily cause you. Hooray! Thank you for the share. Things can more easily cause you dizziness or motion sickness. Like things like traveling in a car, traveling in a plane, and you can have 20/20 vision, right? Like you can have perfect clarity in terms of sharpness, and not realize that your brain is under a whole lot of stress in sort of consolidating the I think Joseph's maybe not at the keyboard right now.
I'm here.
No, you're right. You're right.
It was just a tough stain in the window.
Oh, okay. It looked.
It was a fly.
And so that can lead to like migraines, additional light sensitivity, like more anxiety when driving, clumsiness. I don't know if I said migraines already. Like when you
Difficulty with playing VR.
like motion sickness more readily when playing VR and when traveling. Late at night or early in the morning, like you look at your phone screen with like one eye shut, and looking at screens askance like that.
Hooray!
And Joe is locked in, yeah. Yeah, and I know
So it's
people
really
can see
tricky.
Leah in chat. Leah actually has some really great videos of this on their TikTok channel. So if you want to know more about binocular vision disorder, uh, Leah's channel there has like some
Check out
great
those
videos. Yeah, check out
videos.
those videos. And they don't test for this by
I've seen them and I
default
can
at
attest
most
that they're pretty
optometrists in
good.
Australia. You have to specifically request a binocular vision disorder test because the standard test that you undergo at an optometrist will not necessarily spot binocular vision disorder, and you can have binocular vision disorder and have those standard tests come up completely normal.
But there are
Yeah.
optometrists that, like, specialize in it. and certainly, I know of at least one in Sydney.
Thank you for the gift, Knox.
Hooray!
And I know that there are
Oh,
others
sorry,
in the
Ren.
States as
There
well.
we go.
So
And Alice, thank you.
So if you're wanting to get assessed for that, it's a good idea to Google it and speak to if you have an optometrist, even if it's your local Specsavers or something similar. By all means, ask there because often they actually might do it.
They might
but
do
you
it. They just have to
specifically
ask.
them.
Yeah,
They're not
yeah.
used to seeing it because they're not used to seeing it. They won't necessarily think to check it out. So
And there's a specific type
You
of
might-
glasses that you can get called prism glasses that can help. Anyway,
Yeah.
so no, it does not make me dizzy with the nozzle like that. That may be because I'm wearing my prism glasses. All right,
This is kinda
Joe.
way overdue, but hello, Ren. Hello, Crazy.
Here we
Good
go.
to see you.
Yeah. Joe, you might be able, if you want to, handle the next one. Any tips on how to unmask?
Crack.
Um,
Oh.
Ooh. Oh, that is a good question. I mean, this is a
Hooray!
massive.
it's a massive question.
oversimplification.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Massive
big question.
oversimplification, but the spiel I usually give is like rule number one is to have a firm grasp on like what your presentation of autism is. Not the present like your autism forms your whole identity, but it's going to be a large aspect of it. So like to have a firm idea of what it is it's draining your battery and what it is it's
Hooray!
recharging it
Hooray! Thank you for the share
is
and the gifts.
like essential in order to be able to adjust what it is you're doing, what your day looks like, so that you're minimizing the draining and maximizing the charging.
Oh,
yeah,
ta-da!
that's in
Tamagotchi
layman's
time.
terms.
No,
But
seriously, that was very well put.
thank you, James.
Go on.
Sorry, I'm just
Yes,
gonna
go on. Joseph?
Lie. Where was I up to? Sorry, Tamagotchi time.
Minimizing, drain, maximize. I'm eating for my Tamagotchi time. Let me know in chat what you're doing for your Tamagotchi time. Oh my god, there we go.
So
I love it.
maximizing chargy while minimizing.
Hi, Anna.
Oh yeah. What was the question again? How do what does unmasking look like?
Or how to or tips for unmasking.
Oh, tips for unmasking. Probably my number one tip is this might not answer the question because it's less how to unmask and more what can happen when you unmask. But people responding differently to you, people around you responding differently to you than how they normally do.
Well, I
Because
think being aware of that is a good tip.
Sorry, I'll just interrupt you there. Tamagotchi time is
Yeah,
every
go on.
10,000 TikTok likes, and it's where me, everyone in stream, and hopefully everyone in chat does one little, it can be very small act of self-care. And the idea is it's like you're treating yourself like a Tamagotchi, which was like a little electronic pet toy for millennials where you like press the feed button and you feed it and wash it and take care of it.
This is very generation specific, but yes.
This is very generation specific, but my generation suit me. I don't know. It's like sometimes easier to take care of a Tamagotchi than take care of yourself, and so it's just a quick reminder for all of us that while we're all hyper focusing on this, a quick reminder to take care of ourselves. So I'm eating for my Tamagotchi time. Let me know what you're doing for your Tamagotchi time.
Lie.
On that note, I'm going to dip off for a second just to fill my very large glass of water, which is currently empty. I'll be back in a moment.
Am I good to finish my answer?
Please
Yes,
do.
please finish.
Yeah. One like super important thing that I can't stress enough is to be aware that like if you're unmasking and you're doing a lot of it, you're almost certainly going to be doing things that you didn't do before, or not doing things that you were doing before. Which means there's a strong chance that people around you that spend a lot of time around you are going to maybe start treating you differently or reacting differently to certain things that you do. That is in no way, shape, or form that you are doing anything wrong. It's just you unmasking.
Yeah, that's really good.
And like if people are treating you in a way that is not nice or making you feel bad or like just outright bullying, and this isn't to take away how painful that can be, but again, that's an indication that they're probably not the kind of people that you want to be spending a whole lot of time around anyway. Now there was one other thing I wanted to say, but I've just escaped my mind.
Hooray!
Hooray!
Should take my
I
meds
think
before
I
this.
think I think
That's right. It'll
I
come
think
back.
those are reasonable things. Like unmasking
for
is
the
a
share.
process that will inherently make certain people around you
Oh,
uncomfortable because you're
sorry,
being
James, I just remembered what it
acting in
was.
a more autistic way. Carry on.
Also, too, masking to a degree is helpful. Uh, like if someone is completely unmasked, it's likely that life is going to be
Much harder.
much more difficult in some aspects than it would be if they were masked to a more healthy degree,
I
which
think
is which
the
sucks. It's like ideally it wouldn't be that way, but um,
But I think it's also important to engage with the world as it is rather than how we wish it was. And so, like, it is going to be necessary to put the mask back on sometimes. And I think one of the important things about unmasking is being able to, one, know what your capacity for masking is. Um, and that's going to vary day to day. So it's a very general sort of thing. Um, but then be able to to be able to learn how to put on and take off the mask as is necessary for short periods when you need it, right? Because sometimes it is just easier to deal with this person behind the counter at the bank with the mask on. Sometimes it is easier to have to, go pick up your package at the post office while masking for the however long it takes you to be in the post office, and then you can unmask it out there, right? Those are skills to be learned. They are not easy, and they do not necessarily come naturally, and so something that might require a lot of practice and training. But it's sometimes, unfortunately, necessary to, or certainly helpful, to have that ability to use it as what it should be, which is a tool to help you navigate the world,
Yeah.
but not something that you have to constantly wear um, all the time.
And
the way
oh, what?
I
Oh,
kind of
sorry.
like to,
Go, Joe.
oh, sorry, I
No, no.
was to say the way I kind of like to look at it is like not walking into work and punching your boss in the face and telling him to F off is masking if that's what you want to do because you don't like your boss. Like
Yeah,
reason
that's not
most
masking.
people,
That's
sane and
obeying the law.
reasonable people, don't do that is because the consequences of not masking are far greater than it is to just pay the cost of masking. And that's an extreme circumstance, mind you.
But
Don't
I
punch
think
anybody.
like
That's
extreme
illegal.
examples can help demonstrate it, right? Like, yeah, please no one punch anyone. But yeah.
But the reason I don't do it, I mean, one is because she's
Hello.
my boss. And my
Thank you.
sister is,
Yes.
I do
What?
love her and I'm quite fond of her. But assuming I didn't, the reason I don't do is because I would lose my job, and the cost of that is far greater than it is to just not mask. It's kind of up to the individual person to decide like where that line is in terms of is it worth the cost of masking.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I
I
think
can't
as
stress enough.
well.
Don't
Like we
punch
have to
anyone.
think about. We also have to think about you know what type of masking we're talking about. Because if the masking that someone is engaging in is, for example, um, to deliberately come across as more approachable and more palatable. And so, for example, if someone is deliberately masking, they might be constantly, um, consciously or unconsciously, tightening their throat and talking in a higher register so that they appear a little bit more approachable and friendly. And they might be constantly having to perform a smile and sound really
Customer
nice and
service
friendly and
voice.
gentle. Um, But your actual voice, when you relax the muscles in your throat and in your larynx and around your vocal tract, might actually be in a much lower register. Your natural facial expression might be more flat and more wooden, and therefore might be more easily interpretable as displeasure or aggression, even. And so that can be a good form of unmasking, but it can also be an unhelpful form of unmasking if it ends up getting you into trouble, um, because you're not adequately performing or not appropriately performing facial expressions in a socially acceptable way. So
A good
I
way
think
to
again we
measure
have to.
like how, because a good way to unmask is to work out, okay,
What's
what is
necessary.
your mask first, right? And a good way to measure whether something is
Yeah,
a mask or not is
that's
how much are you thinking about other people's opinions and thoughts and judgments right now? Because if the answer is some, there's likely a degree of masking going on, right? Like, oh no, I can't wear this because X, Y, Z. No, Natasha, you cannot wear the kitty cat ears on a professional stream because that's unprofessional. And it's like, well, but I like the kitty cat ears. And I'm an advocate for people being their authentic selves. And so I'm going to wear the kitty cat ears.
On the other hand, I might not be able to wear the kitty cat ears even if I wanted to, because there actually literally are certain professional restrictions that mean that I might not be able to maintain my registration as a psychologist while being completely authentically unmasked. And so I've got to make a judgment call about, well, what am I prepared to do? What am I prepared to what level of effort and pressure am I willing to put myself under?
Yeah, and Joseph says that moment when you've been masking for so long, you realize you have no idea who you are, and you have to dig deep to find your real self. Yeah, and another really good way of doing that is to work out moments in your life where you were not your real self, like almost doing the opposite and seeing like what's left there, right? And you can do that by like, if there's anything you've ever done that you like an action that you've performed that's kind of given you that sick feeling in your stomach, like you've done the wrong thing, like you like potentially acted against,
didn't really sit well with you, acted
Yeah.
against your values.
Like if you like stole a candy bar from a shop when you were 10 and never returned it, and you still think about it to this day, that would probably indicate that you were someone who is not a thief. Because even though you did the
Or
thievery
someone who-
thing,
Or someone who has certainly values
Yeah.
around like following rules and
fairness
engaging in
and
quote unquote moral or ethical behavior.
yeah. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, because if you were someone, like, if, like, deep down you were someone who was okay with that, like, you still wouldn't be thinking about it occasionally 10 years later, you know? And you can go from, like, those kind of events, like, think back, like, what's happened in your life that really sat well with you, like, that you're really proud of, and, like, what are you potentially ashamed of? And it can help give you a bit of a framework of, like, okay, well, like you wouldn't be ashamed of this if it was who you are, right? Like if you were a violent person, for example, you're not going to be ashamed of when you went and punched your boss in the face. I don't know why that's the example of the evening, but apparently it is. Hooray! Thank you for the follow.
Sorry, team.
No, you're right. You're right.
My fault.
Or perhaps like if you were to witness, say, someone doing something that you feel is reprehensible, if you don't consider yourself to be a violent person, then it might be important to you to not approve of that, but also not to go and physically assault someone.
Yes. That became the example for the day. By first floor, I don't know if they mean like British first floor or American first floor.
They mean ground floor.
They mean ground floor. Okay, well that's good to know.
They mean American first floor.
Yeah, okay. Fantastic. Hooray. Where are we? Okay. Yeah, and then once you work out, like, once you get a framework for like, okay, who are you? You can work out situations where you're applying that into your day-to-day life and where you're not, and that can also help work out, like, what is your mask.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dog car. I like dogs. Everyone can now witness Herman. Come here, Herman. Oh, say hello. Say hello to the stream, Herman. I love you, my son.
No one's been. Oh,
I think he just wants to
God,
go back
he's
to
just
sleep.
perfect, isn't he?
He is perfect. I think he just
Bye.
wants to go back to sleep. There we go.
I love how Herman has become something of a mascot.
Actually, if you're in the fan club on TikTok, you can use the Herman sticker. Yeah, there we go. Herman approves. Oh, sorry, Al. Yeah. Sometimes the chat filters can be a bit funky. Yeah, and Alice, worrying about other people's opinions instead of sharing your own is like a really like natural, deeply ingrained fear in human beings, right? Because early humans survived and evolved the way they did because of the way like we worked together in social groups, right? And part of working together in a social group, part of what holds that together to a certain degree is like shame and judgment. That's like one of the human experiences that keeps people like behaving in a particular way and helps people to behave in cohesive groups, right? There's just circumstances where that's helpful and circumstances where it's not helpful. Like, should you be judged if you commit horrible, brutal homicide? Probably. I think most people would argue yes. That's an appropriate circumstance for judgment. Should you be
Or punch a boss in the
judged?
face.
Should you be
Yes,
judged?
physically assaulting your employer is not always is rarely socially acceptable. Even in the cases, and this is not a current one, and doesn't apply to anyone here, but even in the cases where it might even be, maybe even morally justified. I'm thinking about very specific.
Yeah, you think?
previous employers.
Yeah. I was like, you got someone on your mind right now, don't you? How did I know?
Yes, I'm thinking of the manager of a particular bottle shop that I used to work at in my early 20s. That guy sucked.
All right, we need to talk about this after the stream.
And how did that make you feel, James?
Angry.
I completely forgot what I was talking about. Hey,
Punching people.
yeah, maybe not.
So the concern for the opinions of others.
Yes, yeah,
is
is
a natural human response. Everyone on the planet experiences that, with the exception of like psychopaths and sociopaths. But in general, most people do care about the opinions of others because it's evolutionarily important to care about that. There's also absolutely it's possible to care about it too much.
and like high
or to
masking
be concerned about the
individuals.
opinions of the wrong people.
Yeah, and like high masking individuals, like in an attempt to fit in, often become overly concerned with the judgments and opinions of others. Because that's sort of what it took in order to kind of like attempt to chameleon in, right? That was so quick. And that can be like quite.
Yes, people pleasing. Yeah.
While it can like serve you well in certain circumstances, it can also be like quite actively harmful. And often that's something that ta-da, Tamagotchi time. Everyone now has to do one act of self-care. I'm going to be drinking some water. Let me know what you're doing for your Tamagotchi time in chat.
I too am also drinking water. And you know what, Tash? I'm going to be
look at my
even
little
more
thingy.
refreshed than you are.
No, you're not. I'm going to be more refreshed. I will be the refreshed one.
I'll water you.
I'm so refreshed.
In fact, I challenge anyone in the chat, anyone watching on any platform, to be more refreshed than I am now.
I'm more refreshed. Did you see how refreshed I was just then? I'm so full of water
That's pretty
now.
refreshed.
I feel actually completely sloshy. I have sloshy tummy.
Oh, dear.
It is PDA
I
safe
regret
hydration for me. Yes, he was doing it on purpose.
Yes. And here's the thing, Tash knows exactly what I'm doing.
But I don't
Like-
care because I'm so dehydrated to send help.
Hooray!
I need the help.
Thing, like,
Hooray!
it
Thank you for
works.
the follow.
And it's not
2 bottles of
it's-
oh, God.
and here's the thing, it feels, oh god, it feels so bad to do. It feels like I'm being passive aggressive. But I'm not, I'm helping.
And yeah, and just because that's a PDA technique that works for me doesn't mean
And
that
we've
that's
talked
going
about
to
this.
work
We
for everyone.
know that it
right?
works.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, like, I'm throwing a broad challenge out there just to see, hey.
Thank you
do
for
an
joining us,
experiment, see
Shell
what
Shock.
fits, right? But
And if you haven't
some
already,
people-
Shell
some
Shock.
people-
Sorry, just pause. If you haven't already, Shell Shock, and you want to connect with the like us and the chat outside of this, please feel free to join the Discord. The link is in my link tree on my profile. Coconut, coconut. Thank you for the coconut.
Yes, very
That wasn't an
So-
appropriate time.
All shades of Al.
And thank you, Al.
So that particular PDA strategy doesn't work on me, for example. One, because I don't I don't have PDA issues, but also because I am not on any level a competitive person. In fact, if you know a less competitive person than I do,
It's so
I'd love to
true.
meet them. They seem
Like
like a
your
chill
lack
crowd.
of competition,
Um,
it's the one wedge in our marriage, quite
it,
frankly.
it bothers you sometimes.
It bothers me, yeah.
It honestly bothers you sometimes, which I find, which again, I find kind of
So when
hilarious.
you challenge me to be more fresh than you bet I'm coming to the party.
Yeah, but and you know exactly what I'm doing, and it tends to work. Um, and yeah, by all means, try it out. It's not going to work for everyone because some people aren't very competitive, like me. And if they're not competitive, like if you try, if even if I had PDA, if you try that on me, I'd probably just feel like, yeah, all right, good on you. I'm glad you're feeling refreshed. Um, but if you have a PDA who is very competitive, give it a try. It might net you very positive results. I hope that it does.
Another one that works, just while we're on the topic of PDA, that works really well is someone coming by me like, flying glass of water. And it's like, I want it. I want the flying glass of water. It's mine. Or even when
Oh, that's
even
fun.
even when James
that
is just
can feel
like,
silly and juvenile.
I'm having this nice, cool, crisp glass of refreshing water. And it just triggers a, but I want the water now. Now I want your shiny toy. And I know what he's doing, and it's fine because I'm so dehydrated. I need to drink so much more water than I actually do.
And if you're concerned about like issues with like, oh, but it feels like I'm being manipulative. Well, one,
I'm
talk about these
consenting.
issues with
Yeah.
your PDA first, and talk about these strategies. Get their consent ahead of time to use these little tricks. They use these little hacks, if you like, to help them bypass their PDA response. Because that's what we're doing. We're trying to
I
bypass
want
the PDA
help.
response.
Like I am going to have 20 PDA responses a day anyway. My poor little nervous system. If I can be saved 5 of those, like that's a great bonus. Please send help.
And again, like, if you think it's hard having to sort of deal with the PDA, and you know what? Sometimes that can be
Oh,
frustrating.
Leah.
Sometimes that can be
Oh, sorry,
challenging.
Alice. Oh my
But
goodness. I'm so sorry.
if you think it's hard, it is actually even more distressing to be the PDA, to have that nervous system response
Hooray!
For no good reason.
innocuous requests to your own body's um, demands, like
Hooray! Thank
going
you
to
for
the
the share.
bathroom or being hungry or needing to sleep. To have a huge overactive almost panic response um, to getting asked a question or being asked to do something that you were already gonna do anyway. That's really rough.
I'm so sad about the pug. Um,
Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry. That
Yeah.
is, yeah.
I look at Herman, he's
That's
starting
sad.
to
I'm
get grey
sorry.
hairs around his eyes, and it's like, no, stop it, no aging for you. You have to stay around forever. You're not
Oh
going
god,
anywhere.
it's the same with Little Bit. Every time I notice that she's a little bit slower to
Hooray!
age,
Yeah.
it's like honestly I can't think about Nimbus, my cat, aging without. I'm gonna stop talking about
Stop
it.
talking about it. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. We can cry about it later.
But
We can
Alice,
cry about
really,
mortality, the
that's
mortality of our
very
pets
hard.
later.
That's really hard, Alice, and
Yeah, yeah.
I hope that you're as okay as you can be, um, but you don't have to be okay. You're allowed to not be.
Oh, a few people have asked for like reading recommendations and links and sources and things. I am going to put a
Lord of the
resource
Rings.
list on the Discord and
Hooray!
on my link tree.
Brandon Sanderson.
Anyone want to
Brandon
watch?
Sanderson, a good one too.
Anyone want to watch Lord of the Rings or read Brandon Sanderson with Joe? There we go.
This
Yeah,
is an book where you
I'm
can
gonna
also
put a
watch
resource
Lost.
list on
So
the link tree and on the
recommend that too.
Discord. I just have not found the executive function with which to do so yet, and so it's coming. When is it happening? I don't know. One day I will be
You don't
magically
need to. I just
inspired to
gave some
do
good
it.
suggestions.
It depends on
Sorry,
topic.
Belle.
Depends on topic.
Will there be lost?
I mean, I'm really into the Jack Reacher novels at the moment. You know,
Yeah.
airport dad fiction.
I feel like
surprisingly good quality.
Joe, I feel
For what
like
it
we
is.
might need to have like a lost night on the Discord.
Hooray!
Hooray! Thank you for the follow.
Oh, Tash, honestly, don't say these things unless you truly mean them. Otherwise, you are just building me up for disappointment. We're gonna talk about this later.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been
Don't worry,
like,
team. I'll
I'm like,
organize it. I'll make
does
sure it
anyone want to?
happens.
One of my special interests is Sweden, and I'm learning Swedish. And I was like, does anyone want to learn Swedish with me? Like, does anyone want to talk about Sweden with me? Because I'd love to. I'd love to do that.
So
Oh, okay. You got
with
another
Lost
question.
talk.
Why Lost? The ending.
When you say why Lost, you mean why is it the greatest television show ever made? Because that's the question. That is there's not enough time left in the stream to answer that question.
The greatest television ever made that didn't stick the landing. Ooh,
Oh,
fighting words.
Hi,
Ooh,
Bon.
fighting
Leah,
words.
where's the moderator? Where's the moderator? All these offensive
can't
comments.
You can't ban me. I'll be at the office tomorrow.
Hey, hey. Pratar du svenska? Jag fan har Swedish speaker. I info dumped about Sweden today, Nora. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, we were. I think we did.
Well, the last question I had on my list was any tips on how to unmask, and we went on a journey since then. But let me go to the next question. What would you suggest to someone who consistently stops taking their meds when? Oh my gosh, why is that blocked? Hang on a sec. Let me just pin another one. Oh nay. Oh nay. Give me a sec.
Oh, this is difficult to watch.
Dear me. Where have I put it? Where have I put the comment? Here we go. What would you suggest to someone who consistently stops taking their meds when the meds get them at a good level and struggle to start taking them until they're crashing?
You know, in the history of my work, I have seen an issue come up again and again and again with people who sort of require, and I do mean require, and I count myself among these people who require medications to help them manage their mental health, their neurodivergence, whatever. Something that I often see is this idea of I'm doing really well now. I don't need the medication because I've gotten to a good place. This medication is only for just getting me to this place, not for maintenance. And so it's about sometimes trying to help that person understand that the medication is actually necessary long term. It's not something that and look, with ADHD medication, for example, the cool thing about it is that you can take days off. You probably should take days off to help you prevent.
Talk about that with your psychiatrist. You know, talk about that with your
That is
psychiatrist.
something that you should discuss with your psychiatrist. But generally speaking, most medications need to be taken pretty consistently, even when you're doing well, because they are often part of what's keeping you well. I guess it's hard to give an answer to this specific question because I don't know, and it's right now
in
not
terms
appropriate
of
for us to know. What's the reason why the person struggles with their medication? Like, what's their reasoning? What's going on? That's a conversation to have with that person, and maybe that's a conversation to have with that person in conjunction with their doctor, with their psychiatrist, with their treating medical team, whatever. Because there's got to be a reason for the behavior.
I find personally, because it
Is
depends
maybe
on,
can be problem solved.
without going into too much personal detail, like it depends on like what is like the cause of that. But often introducing novelty into the act of taking the medication can help, like when that medication barrier sort of like mental medication barrier starts to come up. So like remember that antihistamine joke we had when we first started dating, James?
Yes.
Yeah. I had to take.
I'm not going to tell it because if I tell it, it's going to sound terrible.
I'll tell it. That's fine. That's fine.
You can tell it. If
I
you
had to
have
take.
my-
I used to be allergic to Nimbus, our cat, which back in the day was just James's cat, but now he's also my son. And I've since developed I'm no longer allergic to cats. I've developed, my immune system has developed tolerance. And so I had to take an antihistamine like every time I went over James's apartment, and I now know I would have a PDA response when it's like, oh, you should take an antihistamine. And we made a joke of it. It would be like, okay, it's time for your compliance pill. I'm like, yay, my compliance pill. And then I would take the antihistamine and I'd be like, I am now compliant.
Got to meet that compliance check.
Yep.
That's
And
funny.
Thought so.
I've also seen people who like be like, I'm a robot, and this is my robot pill, and this helps me be a happy robot. And like conceptualize it in like a more playful, fun
Hooray!
way, rather than like thinking of it as like medication in a very traditional sense. Like like even hooray! Also, thank you for the share. Even like thinking about it like a Tamagotchi time, like you are a Tamagotchi, and taking the medication is a button that you need to press. Because like it you know, this is definitely a conversation to have with your own therapist or a doctor, but like if it's not coming from a place of lack of understanding that you need to take it consistently for like for your medication to work even when you're feeling good, then
It really depends on what's the
yeah,
individual
like
factors affecting
what's the barrier
situation.
there, and like look at that barrier and discuss ways to overcome it. But like often like if there's ADHD or autism involved, adding that novelty can go a long way. And I've just given some examples, like your own version of that might look a little bit different. And what if it's more subconscious? Yeah, okay. So if it's more subconscious, then what might help? I mean, number one is novelty, because the playfulness, if it's like a dopamine releasing, happy juice releasing kind of activity, that can like that can help. But also putting external structures in, like willingly putting external structures in place to help prompt it, right? Like it's almost like protecting you from yourself there, in terms of like, okay, cool, maybe having a reminder app might help. It wouldn't help me because that's not enough, you know. But I don't know, reminder apps
But
like
it can
setting
help
that
some people.
it can help some people, yeah. Or like, um, if there's like one thing that you do every day without fail, right? So like, how
Oh,
did I end up here? Uh,
you somehow set yourself in the thing.
yeah. So like, back down. So say for example, every day when you wake up, you go and you grab a bowl of Weet-Bix. That's the first thing you do. It's like tying it to perhaps an autistic, like a rigid autistic ritual, right? Like, so say for example, you prepare your breakfast in the exact same way, the exact same breakfast in the exact same way every day for the past 20 years. Tie your medication taking into that.
Yeah, if you
Like,
can make it part of a ritual or a routine, that's helpful.
and
If you can,
often like neurodivergents have difficulty starting a routine from scratch, and that's why it's like, okay, what are the existing rituals and routines you have, and can you just insert it as a step?
unfortunately, one of the issues is if it's pure ADHD, as in there's no autism in the mix, then routines might always be a struggle. And what we might have instead of routines is protocols, right? Like, I know that it is important for me to brush my teeth. Um, it is not an automatic thought process for me to brush my teeth. So it is not a something that I have been able to successfully um, build into a routine because it's a protocol, not a routine. It's something that I do, and I have to consciously think about it every single time. And yeah, is that frustrating? Yes, absolutely, absolutely, it's frustrating. And so yeah, there might be a lot of things that are like this that maybe they can't be routinized. How do I use this
um
chair?
Sorry, we got an interesting comment there. You do the same thing for 30 days, it becomes a habit. There's
If
actually,
you're
well, there's,
neurotypical,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah. But there's actually quite a body of research that shows that mechanism of developing habits, like on a neurological level, often doesn't work the same way for ADHDers. Where you can do the same thing for 30 days, it's not a habit. There's going to be ADHDs where that's an exception. But yeah, there's actually like a decent body of research that suggests that, like, yeah, that process is a little not happening. If you have ADHD, like,
Unfortunately, building habits is quite difficult, and sometimes sometimes permanently unsuccessful, in which case it's more about consistent effort, not so much about success. You know, it's about trying to get it done and trying to get it done consistently and congratulating yourself when you do, and then accepting that you might not always. Um, but it's something that my dentist told me about brushing my teeth, and so I will tell people the same thing when it comes to, like, for example, practicing mindfulness tasks at home or practicing other sorts of experiments or behavioral experiments that might set for therapy. Um, if you are gonna if you're gonna try to floss and brush your teeth, the best way to do it is absolutely to do it 2 to 3 times per day. Right, morning, after your lunchtime meal, and in the evening
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, sure.
However, that's the best. Is that the best way? Absolutely. Is it the way that everyone does it? No. Um, so if you can not do it the best way, if you can only brush your teeth once a day, that's great. That's still good. If you're only flossing, if you're not flossing every day, if you're only flossing every other day, 2 or 3 times a week, that's actually better than most people are doing. Most people aren't flossing every day. So like, and most people aren't flossing 3 or 4 times a week. So don't aim for perfect, right? You might not be able to get the
See you,
routine
split
down,
peas.
but if you can consistently make
Well
it
done
up
for taking
Split
care of
every day
peas.
and
yourself.
get it done, that's better. That's good.
Yeah. One technique
Later,
that
split
helps
peas.
me with brushing my teeth, like one thing is I don't actually like the sensation of like having dirty teeth. Like it on a sensory level bothers me. But also,
Sure.
even when my teeth like don't feel dirty, I don't know, I'd describe it as a furry feeling, even when they don't feel like furry. If I just pay
I know
attention
exactly what you
on a
mean.
sensory level that my teeth exist and I can feel them in my mouth, it's like, oh god, no. Um,
Yeah, so you can hijack your sensory sensitivities.
yeah, by just like paying attention to it a little bit, it's like now. Actually, I couldn't brush my teeth now, and we use like sensitive teeth toothpaste, which actually has like is kind of just like toothpaste with a numbing effect. And if I brush
Because
my
I have
teeth with
sensitive teeth.
that, I can't feel my teeth anymore, and that's fantastic for me. I love that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's when I'm having a little bit of an executive dysfunction problem with I know I need to go brush my teeth, but it's like, oh, but now I know my teeth exist. Let's fix this. Um,
and and so you can pair certain tasks to other things. You know, maybe it's the case that you might only brush your teeth when you're leaving the house. Um, but if you're leaving the house most days because of work or because of other responsibilities or just things you want to go to, if it's most days, that's probably cool. But obviously, the downside to that would be if you have periods, maybe long periods, where you don't leave the house and therefore don't brush your teeth. And look, brushing teeth, the reason why we're talking about it as an example is because brushing teeth is super important, has all kinds of causal connections to other health problems. Um, so, like, yeah, you should. Oral hygiene is very, very important. You should brush your teeth.
and
Um,
I'm just reading chat there.
but it's also difficult.
Leah just pointed out like a low
There's a lot of
spoon
difficulty.
option. This is a frame of mind that's very important. Like if you're a parent of an autistic child, or if you're autistic yourself, in that like just because something has to be done doesn't mean it has to be done in the normal way. You want to look at like what the problem is before focusing too much on a solution, right? So I've often had parents come in with their child. It's like, oh, my child like who's autistic like refuses to brush his teeth. How can I get him to brush his teeth? And it's like maybe the answer is that you don't. Um, uh, because what is like why does someone brush their teeth? They brush their teeth because their teeth need to be cleaned. And it's like, okay, cool. Getting your child to clean their teeth in the quote unquote normal way isn't the goal. The
Yeah,
goal
it's
is
not
to
a
get
thing.
their teeth clean, right? And there's things like chews. There's things uh, like little like vibration devices that like brush your teeth
Yeah,
without actually
like
having a
sonic
brush, right?
like the
Yeah.
sonic toothbrushes,
Um,
toothbrushes,
uh,
toothbrushes.
yeah. There's like little like finger brushes that like they have them for dogs as well, but you can use them on humans too. Um, And it's like maybe getting them to use their toothbrush is not the goal there. And same with like a lot of autistic children have difficulty like wiping after going to the bathroom, and so they have an aversion to then going to the toilet and being toilet trained, because then it involves wiping afterwards, and they can't like handle that on a sensory level. And it's like, okay, cool. The goal isn't necessarily to wipe; it's to hygienically clean themselves after going to the bathroom. And like sometimes that might be
Get a bidet.
get a
It's
bidet,
better
yeah.
anyway.
Maybe they need special
Dream.
wipes instead of normal toilet paper.
Dream.
Don't focus too much on getting them to do this solution when like that solution's not the only solution problem. Also, ta-da! It's Tamagotchi time. I'm going to be drinking more water. Let me know what you're doing for your Tamagotchi time in the chat.
Right.
Fantastic.
Your board's looking pretty clean.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um.
this angle.
Also, I got to do the thingy now. If you're enjoying the stream and you haven't already, please follow or subscribe depending on the channel in which you're watching us on. If you're enjoying like the vibe in chat and want to socialize with others from the chat like outside of the streams, please feel free to join the Discord. There's a link in my link tree. And then also if you a neurodivergent who is perhaps looking for neurodivergent affirming therapist or like assessment, we have availabilities for therapy and assessment currently at Blackbird Psychology. And we are like a neurodivergent affirming psychology practice. We are in Parramatta, like that's our physical location, but we also operate Australia-wide via telehealth. We are owned and led by openly neurodivergent individuals, and most of our staff are openly neurodivergent as well.
Hello.
Hello.
So there's one of them.
Yep, and you're able to book
wild.
online through our website. The link is in any of my profiles, regardless of what platform you're watching on. It's also in my link tree. Or you can give us a call during like reception hours, and the phone numbers on our website. There we go. I did the spooking thing. Oh, also one more.
Hey.
I also just wanted, I've shown these on one of my TikTok videos, but I also just want to show them on stream. I just want to show you worry worms. So this is, I love this. This is a cute little fidget, and it's like just little beads on some wire. It's and I carry them around with me on my lanyard, but you can also like use them as like a little ring, and just like roll the beads
Put
through
mine
your
in my
fingers
belt
there.
loops.
Yeah, I'm not formally sponsored, by the way. I just like really like these and want to tell you about them. Yeah, and they're made by Leah. So fellow neurodivergent. They're handmade by Leah, who's in chat, and
Handmade.
yeah, handmade. Yes. Yeah, and they're made with abrasion-resistant beads and 45-kilo tension wire, so they're actually like quite tough. They are not easily broken. Yeah, I have several of them. And each one comes with like its own little personality and quirks and traits. And if you're interested, you can go to Leah's profile, or if you go to my link tree on my TikTok, there's a link to the website if you want to help support fellow neurodivergent. I think it's only within Australia. I don't believe there's international shipping currently. But yes, highly recommend. I really like them. I have many of them. I also like the sound that they make when the beads clink together. It's a nice, very satisfying sound.
Satisfying sound.
Yeah. Very good. Do recommend. Fantastic.
Oh my god, these railings are filthy.
I have autism and questions. How do you reduce stress?
Ooh, sorry,
Joe.
I'm passing.
No, you're right. Joe, did you want to take that one?
Into a
Joe, did you want to answer that one?
less specific question.
Also, the question: how do I reduce stress?
Yeah, someone is autistic. How do they reduce stress?
Ooh.
It's like, where do you start with that?
Where
Yeah.
do you start with that?
I
mean,
okay, I've organized thoughts if Joe doesn't have, if Joe would like them.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I'll take it.
by all means, Joe, take it away.
I mean,
Oh, you.
it's
Yeah. Okay. Go.
no, James, you go. No, sorry, you take the floor.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Someone answer the
So,
question.
someone answer the question.
No, Natasha, you answer.
Okay. No. Sure. Okay.
Sorry.
So it really does depend on how you individually self-soothe, right? So what works for one person is not going to necessarily work for you, but there would be things that you might already know help to reduce stress. So, for example, engagement in special interests can help to reduce stress. Um, sensory seeking behaviors that are safe and not harmful can be really regulating. Um, reducing stress is really about on an immediate individual level. We're talking about not just stress relief, but we're talking about self-soothing, right? So general emotional regulation. So what are the things that you can do to help yourself regulate your emotions and soothe? So again,
I was actually
engaging interests.
we were
Yeah.
talking about it a bit earlier in the stream. But
Yeah.
and I was talking about this with someone yesterday actually, or it was earlier today. Whereas it's like, well, I already do that. Uh, it's like as like a late diagnosed autistic, you can always find like new ways to add to that toolbox, right? And we were talking about it earlier. Like sometimes it's about looking back. Like, what did you do as a child that you no longer do? Like, what did you do as a child that soothed you that you no longer do? So the example I gave earlier was like going on a swing, right? That's what I like. I hogged the swing as a child because it was soothing for me. And generally it's considered okay. It's not appropriate for an adult to be on a swing or what have you. And it's like, well, I'm autistic and this helps me soothe. And also, I don't care what you think. Let me be on my swing. It helps me feel better. Yeah, things like engaging in special interests, right? Like, a big focus of research on this lately has been like the effect of video games. And there was a study, I think it was published last year or maybe the year before. It was like a medium-sized study, so like take it with a grain of salt in terms of the findings. But the findings demonstrated that while there was like a significant negative effect of like lengthy video game playing for neurotypical adolescents, that same negative effect was not seen in autistic adolescents, like generally, and
Oh yeah, maybe tell me about
yeah, and that extended like video game sessions for those autistics who were interested in doing that was in many cases beneficial for their mental health, and like that was just them engaging in their special interests too. And so it's like, okay, cool, like what can you? Okay, you're autistic, and often we experience high levels of stress and anxiety. It's like, what can you use? Like, this is a strength-based approach, right? Like, what can you use from your autistic presentation to help you? Like, if you're a big special interest, like if special interest is a big part of your presentation, like introduce that as like a specific soothing technique, right? As intentional soothing technique. See you, Jess.
Goodbye, Jess.
And the other side for like regulating stress is like also reducing the stresses. Like what are you subjecting yourself to that you don't have to? Because a lot of the time, there's a lot of background pressure in autistic people's lives to behave normally, and often that like behaving normally, like quote unquote, doesn't have much value beyond like causing you stress, right? It's like, okay, cool, no, but this is how you fit in. It's like, well, do you fit in this context? Like, even if you do that, like, are you fitting in? Like, is it actually working and helping, or is the result you're just like it's causing you stress? Yeah.
Is it therefore even worth doing?
Yeah. So like, say for example, I was told it's rude to walk around with headphones on. I'm not leaving the house if I can't put headphones on. Like, I don't know what you want. Like just the sounds, it causes me a lot of stress. So even though it can be considered rude in some contexts to wear headphones, like when you're walking around the shops or whatever. It's like, well, that like behaving normally is not worth the amount of stress that wearing headphones saves me. And so even examining what you're doing in your day-to-day life that's like causing you stress that you don't have to necessarily be doing, that you're not getting much value out of, and breaking that down.
Can I hate to interrupt the flow of questions, but can I pop in my own question?
Yes.
Something you spoke about, I'm pretty sure you spoke about it briefly in a previous stream, but I think it was a stream where we were playing a game that was not calm and relaxing. It was more fast and stressful, so it was hard for all of us to listen, I think. But the benefits of like in kind of within the context of ADHD, the benefits of listening to something whilst falling asleep.
So a lot of like,
or possibly the disadvantages.
yeah. Well, so okay, so I think anyone who's gone to their doctor, to their general practitioner before, like complaining of insomnia, has gotten like a sleep hygiene list, right? Or people will give advice about sleep hygiene, and a lot of the neurotypical approaches are like not for everyone, but can be ineffective for neurodivergence. I'm putting my darker glasses on because my screen's bright.
Because it's time to do that.
Yeah, because I feel like
Before you
doing that.
start the
I want to be comfortable. I want to be more comfortable. So say for example, like a lot of the neurotypical sleep hygiene advice is sleep in dark with all the lights off and with no sound, right? Like, however, sensory differences in those, like in autistics and ADHDers, can mean that they need some extra input in order to fall asleep, right? Like their brain needs that sensory input in order to relax and calm down. And so that might be having a video playing in the background, like when you're trying to fall asleep, having like some lights on, having music playing, having some kind of input. Yeah. Like I have difficulty sleeping in silence or in complete darkness. Like I empathize greatly with that crazy. And so I can explain why if you'd like, or at least like a general, like a really general simplified version of why that may be. If you'd like to hear it, Joe.
Yeah, no, please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So the part of your brain that processes like sensory input, it I was speaking before about like the streamlined highways and like the more messy highways in terms of like logical pruning. It tends to have more branches and connections than like in autistic and ADHDers when compared with their neurotypical counterparts, right? But another difference is that like in neurotypicals, it's like the part of their brain that processes sensory input can go into sleep mode, and that's like just being able to like mentally shut out certain sensory input. Whereas in a lot of autistics and ADHDs in their brains, right, it and those with sensory sensitivities, it doesn't do that. Doesn't do that. Never, like, it's not. Think of it like it's not off, right? It's more like your phone screen shutting off, but your phone is still on, right? Like it doesn't really go into that sleep mode, and this is what can cause hyper and hypo reactivity to sensory input. It's a contributing factor with that, right? And so your brain can experience stress when there is too much input. But also, if that part of your brain doesn't really go into sleep mode and suddenly has nothing to do, that can also produce a stress response if you have these like neurological differences, right? And that sensory part of your brain can need input, need something to chew on in order for it to like calm its farm, so to speak, and to allow your brain to like shift into sleep. But that's like one of the areas of autistic and ADHD's brain that, like on average, when compared to neurotypical counterparts, have more connections, have more branches, and have more neurons. That doesn't mean it works better. Let me tell you, that doesn't mean it works better. Differences, not like deficits or like it's just like it's different. But yeah, that is what the research currently indicates. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Cool.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for your TED Talk.
Yes. How common is ADHD? Hi, Sazi. Yeah, weighted blanket certainly helps me. Oh, I mean, just there's lots of questions there. Kidnapping in the form of cuddling a toy too. Yes, that is a type of sensory input, and weighted blankets are a type of sensory input. How common is ADHD? Look, let me tell you, Max. No one knows, and anyone who claims that they do, they don't.
Is probably wrong at best.
Yeah, they might be close, but quite frankly, our understanding of autism, ADHD, and the ADHD combo is like still developing. And in order to say how common is ADHD, we would have to have accurate diagnoses across an entire population for potentially like decades, right? Generations, a huge sample size, and we don't have anything close to that. Like our definitions and of autism ADHD, like our diagnostic criteria, they're still developing and changing today. And so to say how common is ADHD, like we can't put a number on it. Like no one knows.
So, there used to be so the DSM will list prevalence rates, right? And so the broad prevalence for autism, for example, used to be considered to be around, but anywhere between 2 and 5%, right? And with a greater number of a greater proportion of autistic people being males, and certainly people who are assigned male at birth, than people who are assigned female at birth. Now, the problem with that is that that information is based on the number of diagnoses that are actually made and recorded, but also that information is based on the diagnoses that were made with previous diagnostic criteria, which has since been largely broadened, right? So that those numbers aren't necessarily correct. So when you hear people saying like, "Oh, there's been this big increase in like diagnoses," yeah, there has been, because we have gotten better at recognizing and assessing and diagnosing, and we're starting to catch people uh, who previously would have slipped through the cracks.
But like further to that as well,
And we're
James,
starting
right?
to do that more and more. So yes, the numbers are increasing.
It's like, oh, there's like more people are autistic these days. It's like, well, we can't say either way. Like, you can't say that it's just diagnosis, like the expansion of the diagnostic criteria either. That it's just increased access and understanding.
There's other variables in there that
The
we
rates
can't
could be
completely
increasing.
account
They
for
could
yet.
they could be decreasing. Like we don't have anywhere near the amount of data or information in order to make that call.
Yeah, so that's at least one variable that might be influencing that. Another variable might be that, because not only are we seeing that increase in diagnoses, because we've also now, because keeping in mind that prior to 2013, there were like anyone who was diagnosed with who would now be diagnosed with level 1 autism would have been previously diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which is no longer the case. So now there's like this increased number of level 1 autism diagnoses, because they are indeed the same disorder. And there's also an increased likelihood, because we know that genetics plays a major role, although not necessarily the only role. And so we also know that, like, if there's a greater number of people, especially people who are like, level 1, level 2, maybe who, because of increased supports, are able to go on to have little autistic children, then yeah, maybe we're seeing potential increases in rates because of that as well. There's so many variables that it's impossible to really account for. What's the number? No idea. How common is it? Pretty common. But not as common as you think, but not as rare as you might think either.
Yeah, so I don't know
It's
if
hard
that's
to
a very
give
satisfying answer to
meaningful
your
answers.
question, but it's like that's probably the most honest answer. Who knows? Ta-da! Oh, Tamagotchi time,
I
everyone.
could grab
Now
my
let's do an
DSM and I could
active.
tell you the official prevalence rates. I'm not going to do that because I don't.
I mean, they're
think
also
those,
like even from a few years ago, they're
currently-
cripplingly out of date.
Lie.
Well, yeah, this is the thing. Like, I don't think that those are perfectly accurate numbers.
Let me know what you're doing for
So
your
hard to-
Tamagotchi
hard to
time,
100%
your
say.
active self-care in the chat. That is not a silly question at all. Sorry, let me just next question. I'm actually no. I'm going to jump to
Not above
Al's
a
question.
silly
I'm going to go
question.
back to H's question just because Al's question is a little bit on topic still. Silly question. What are the different levels of autism, and what are the differences between them?
Yeah, sure. Shall I do this one? I know I told
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so autism is split into three support levels: level 1, level 2, level 3. So
Thank you for the
it's
gift.
not necessarily
Hooray!
it's not the case that someone with level 3 autism is more autistic than someone with level 1 autism.
Thank you, Candice.
It is everyone. If you're autistic, you're as autistic as anyone else. But your presentation might be different. Your support needs might be different. Your capacity to mask and to cope with certain things might be different as well. So that's an important thing to note. The differences, I suppose, comes down to how the specific, and I don't mean like severity, but how the specific presentation, how the specific traits and behaviors of autism and of this and an individual's presentation of autism might impact them, especially considering on a functional level. So someone who is diagnosed with level 1 autism might struggle to navigate social situations because they might need to really think to decode non-verbal communication, and they might not necessarily decode it correctly. They might struggle with some repetitive speech that can get in the way of their communication, but often often in a way that doesn't necessarily seem overtly strange or odd or interfere significantly. They might have to work harder. They might sometimes seem a bit off or odd, but by and large they can still communicate. Whereas someone diagnosed with level 3 might really have difficulty engaging in meaningful verbal speech at all. They might still be able to communicate via other means, via alternative communication strategies, perhaps. But verbal speech might be almost completely off the table for them. And that doesn't mean they can't understand or can't comprehend verbal speech of others, but it means they might not be able to verbalize fluently themselves. Repetitive behaviors for someone who's level 1 might be primarily self-soothing, and they might be sort of intermittent, and they might be able to stop without any sort of distress. And the repetitive behaviors might not really cause
Thank you,
any
Candice.
issues.
Hooray!
Like spinning,
Hooray!
for example, right? Whereas someone who's level 3
My goodness, thank you, Candice.
might rock and spin on the spot for long periods of time, and they are unable to stop because they are in so much distress that they need to do this to soothe themselves. And stopping them and forcing them to stop will result in a huge meltdown because it's so distressing to try and stop doing that behavior. So it really comes down to what's the level of impact of the traits and behaviors. It's really common for there to be a lot of overlap. There isn't a provision in the DSM currently for like a 1.5 or a 2.5, even though that's probably a more nuanced approach. Instead, there's only just the three broad levels, and that's maybe not as flexible as maybe it will be in the next iteration of the DSM, which will be the 6, which my guess is going to be coming out in the early 2030s. But I could be wrong. Could be coming out sooner.
Yeah, and two people of the same level can just have completely different support needs, like completely
different presentations. Yeah. So the differences are in differences of support needs, differences of the impact on someone's life. what it makes harder for them, what it makes the kind of, and certainly the kind of accommodations and supports that they would need. It's not so much inherently about severity, because that's just the wrong word to use, because it doesn't really encapsulate what the levels are meant to sort of indicate. It's more about what are the support needs of a person versus with level 3 versus level 2 versus level 1. So I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I think like and sorry, it's very hard to judge like someone's support needs like externally, right? So if I was to use myself, for example, I'm diagnosed with autism level 2. And I, in terms of like getting specific information across, I don't have too much difficulty communicating like verbally in that way, right? Like that's not that was sorry, that was your example of like a potential level 2 support need, right? Like that's not why I'm level 2, right? Like the specific reason I'm level 2 is, well, a couple of reasons, but like I get so hyperfixated on my special interests that I will completely 100% fail to take care of myself in any way. So if I get like maximum hyperfixated on a task, like 30 hours can pass and I will have not eaten, slept, drank any water or anything.
Yeah, it can be real. There's a real concern for your physical health.
Yes. Like I when like fully hyperfixated, I can like completely fail to pull myself away from the task without there being some external driver like doing that.
And even then, it can cause a lot of distress.
Yes. Even then, it can cause like a huge amount of distress, right? And then like the other reason is I can often have meltdowns that require someone else to be there in order to down regulate from the meltdown, or like my like health and safety can be at risk because of that. And so, whereas like Joseph, who's level 1 autistic, right? Like you could leave Joe home alone for a week and he'd be fine. If anything, he'd have a good time.
I'd need probably at least 2 large jars of Nutella and maybe 4 loaves of bread, but I'd be okay.
Yeah.
My diet probably wouldn't be the best, but I'd be all right.
Whereas it is not safe for me to be left alone for a week. That there is
Hooray!
more likely than not, I would become severely ill or injured. Like my safety would be at risk.
And you know, there was a difficult situation earlier in the year when I was away for 2 weeks, and unexpectedly the supports that
we had it planned in like fell through. Yeah.
And that was a very stressful time for everyone. Like least of all me, but like very stressful for everyone involved, because it's really difficult for you to be able to manage that.
And like, surprise, surprise, it was like within like a day and a half of the support. Yeah, of like the supports that we planned falling through. Like I was like not in an okay place. Whereas and then Purple Meadow says I can't even be alone for like even a day, and it's like that could potentially be level 3 vibes then, right? Not diagnosing or anything, but like that potentially, right? Like, and so it's
the leveling system, which is one of the newer sorts of developments in ASD diagnostics, as in it's only come into place with the DSM-5, so from 2013, is there's still a lot of debate in terms of how those are applied. There's still some inconsistencies in how those levels are applied. Broadly speaking, when you're getting a diagnosis, because the behaviors and traits of autism are split up into communication difficulties
Yeah.
and repetitive restricted interest and behavior difficulties, you usually get assigned 3 different sort of levels, as in you get assigned a level for your communication difficulties, you get assigned a level for your repetitive restrictive interest and behavior difficulties, and then you get an overall level, which is not inherently an average. Sometimes someone might average them. Sometimes it might be appropriate to average them. Someone might be level 1 across the board, but then have sensory difficulties that are so overwhelming that it actually ends up being level 3 altogether, because there's so much problems, there's so much impact of those sensory sensitivities, even though all of the other traits or diagnostic criteria actually cause fairly minimal, although still clinically significant, distress or impairment.
And
So
And
and
it's not a,
sorry, Joe.
oh, sorry, it can wait, but I do have a question here at some
Mm.
point,
Oh,
if
Yeah, go
one
ahead.
of you have time.
sure.
I was just, how does, and I'll ask this without providing any identifying
Hooray!
factors, but how does,
Oh,
like,
please,
say,
please don't.
a person's circumstances, like say a person's job impact? Let me give an example. If a person
I know what you
shows
mean.
traits like that you would typically see in a level 2, or like a severity of traits that you would typically see in a level 2, but their job that they have means that those traits aren't really a problem, or even to some degree are quite beneficial. Does that have any
So,
effect on the level?
so the thing is that like someone's assigned support level is not static, right? So it can change.
Mm.
It's not unusual for it to change. It's not unusual for it to be sort of maybe sometimes contextual, right? Like there might be certain environments in which someone is able to, you know, broadly sort of, let's use the word function, although that's not a great word, quite
Mm.
well in one particular
Ta-da!
context, but they
Tamagotchi
might really
time.
struggle in
I'm going to be
another
drinking
context.
some water.
Hooray!
Let me know what you're doing as your active self-care for Tamagotchi time.
So there might be, contextual factors. It is entirely possible for someone's support level to change over the over the lifespan, right?
Mm.
It's not uncommon for someone. It's actually not uncommon because of certain factors around unmasking and what's sometimes referred to as skill regression that can occur after diagnosis certainly for a late diagnosed person. Um, to For their support level to change from their original diagnosis over the course of time. That can happen. It can go up, it can go down, it can go back up, it can go back down, because it's the tricky thing is from a diagnostics point of view is trying to determine, because this is the thing that we're supposed to sort of adhere to, is trying to
That should be better,
determine
Brooks.
what's the level of difficulty that is stemming from the autistic diagnostic criteria specifically and not from other factors. Now, that is hard to navigate because there's, I think, a really solid argument that maybe it's not inherently fair to isolate a set of someone's experiences from all of their other experiences when there
Yes,
is
Bruce.
intersections between them.
Mm.
So that's, I think, really, really difficult to. That's one of the challenging parts of the leveling system, and where it sort of, I think, needs refinement. And hopefully, we'll see that refinement come through in future versions of the DSM. A lot of it right now is left up to clinician discretion, which can be a good thing, can be a negative thing. It's it's always worth asking the question, can these levels be changed? Yeah, a lot of the time they can. It'll usually require updates to information that's gathered because there's usually a gap in time and changes in circumstances that justify a reassessment at a later date.
Mm.
Two things I
Mm.
want to add to that is that
Please.
we're mandated to use the level system when diagnosing autism
Yes, we
within
don't get
Australia.
a choice about that. So
Um,
our personal feelings about it are largely irrelevant.
yeah. Like, do we think it's perfect? No. Does it have lots of problems? Yes. Is it better than nothing? Also, yes. Like, can it be helpful? Yes. Can it be problematic? Yes. All of those things. The other thing as well is that quite a common cause of increasing support needs for adults can be for over rehabbers can be menopause and perimenopause. And actually, for that point, even like puberty, like your at the beginning of menstruation. And the reason for that is that autistics can like tend to be significantly more sensitive to changes in hormone levels. And like for example, like premenstrual dysphoric disorder is extremely common amongst
Yes, it is.
autistics when compared to the general population. And often menopause can be, and perimenopause and other like hormonal swings, like for example, being pregnant, and post giving birth, can, like the changing hormonal levels can significantly like worsen the severity of someone's presentation. And so a lot of people find that like postmenopause, or like even just entering like late 20s, early 30s, when like those hormonal changes start to happen, like a really like dramatic increase in support needs, and dramatic increase in severity of even ADHD symptoms, because they're like ADHD is also like tied up in this as well. Yeah. That's all I want to say about that. Oh, actually, no, one more thing, and that's why that like that perimenopause, menopause age is a really, really common age for like over rehabbers to be like seeking a diagnosis, because that's often when it's like, oh my gosh, things were kind of like okay enough before, but now everything is suddenly super unmanageable.
A question about the game, very quickly.
Yes.
I can't put down this gnome.
Where?
Oh,
Holding a gnome, and it's not letting me put it down.
Well,
can't see no.
And now I don't know. And now I don't know what to do about it.
So you can't see a gnome?
No, I'm holding a gnome.
No,
I
Joseph.
can see
Joseph, can you see the gnome? James's gnome?
Not in James's hands, but there is this gnome that looks like it's missing color near his body, but it's not moving
Try and pick it up.
in relation to his body.
You
Nothing.
pick it up, Joe.
Nothing.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's a problem.
You see what I mean? He's
Well,
seeing the
I
same
guess
thing?
you're just standing there looking pretty
fly.
now, James.
I guess I just got a gnome. That's fine. Okay.
Nice gnome.
I'll try and figure it out. Nice gnome in you.
Maybe like change your controls or try and pick up a different gnome.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
Pound
Anyway,
the problem. Now you have 2 gnomes.
Yes. Two gnomes are better than one. I'll just have to follow my gnome.
This is Power Simulator 2.
I will stop. I promise I will stop now.
Okay. We might actually make this next one the last question of the evening. It's certainly the last one on the list. Is there I'll leave this one to James as well. Is there a type of breath work that the research says is most effective?
So, in terms of breathwork, biofeedback is all.
Sorry, one sec. Candice, what accent is James and Joseph, not the typical Aussie accent? That would be the typical Aussie accent if you're autistic. Any accent that you're hearing, it's kind of like what we call like informally like the autistic accent.
I love this question. This is my favorite. I get it less often as I get older, but occasionally I get it and it just tickles me because I spent so long wondering why I would get this question, and then now I know.
Yeah.
So my accent is really quite specific, and it's specific because partly it's influenced by autism. It is also partly influenced by having an immigrant family background on both sides, different ones. So there's different accents in my family that have influenced things. There's also a certain amount of what's the best way to say this without sounding like an awful person? There's a certain amount of education that has occurred and socialization that has occurred to develop my accent to be different from those around me. So that's a factor as well. How do I put down this gnome? But yeah, I don't have a typical or what's called a broad Australian accent. I would maybe have what's sometimes referred to as, I guess, the Australian equivalent of a received British accent.
With Joe and I, it's just the tism. Um,
What is it like? His British is often the guess that I get from other people. Like when you say it's autism, what is it
okay.
about the autism that
It's like a
influencing
subconscious
my...
picking up of like sounds and accents.
Okay, that's what I thought it was.
So a cool thing is that accents don't come from your voice box or your larynx; they come from mouth shape. And so there is potential that because a lot of autistic people don't have difficulties with eye contact, we pick up accents differently to how autistic children pick up. So autistic being not autistic, how autistic children pick up accents because we're mimicking mouth shapes we're mimicking sounds and mouth shapes, not necessarily of the people around us. So it's very common for autistic children in non-American countries, so the UK, Australia, New Zealand, to have North American accents, sometimes really specific North American accents that might be influenced by like the media that they watch as children. It used to be very common in Australia for autistic children to have British accents on account of the sheer amount of British children's television that we get on Australian TV. Think shows like Fireman Sam, Postman Pat, Puddle Lane, all those sorts of older British TV shows. Yes, exactly. So Candace, my accent is broadly Australian, but doesn't sound typically Australian. I do not know how to put down this gnome. I just have a gnome now.
I'm now the gnome guy. I'm sorry, and James, is there a type of breath work that research says is most effective?
So broadly speaking, when we're talking about breath work, you got to think about the purpose of that breath work. A lot of the time, the purpose that we're talking about is for down regulation of your nervous system, right? So down regulating your sympathetic nervous system and pushing up or up regulating your parasympathetic nervous system. And what this is designed to do is to help you manage or reduce feelings of anxiety, stress, anger, discomfort, that sort of thing. In which case, what you're trying to do is you're looking at lowering the amount of oxygen in your body and pushing up the amount of CO2 or carbon dioxide in your body. What this translates to in physical terms is breathing out for longer than you're breathing in. So there's a couple of different rhythms that you could try. So there's the 4-7-8 technique, and this has pretty good efficacy for down regulation. And this is where you would breathe in. This is really hard to do. It takes some practice to get it right. You would breathe in as much as you can into your diaphragm, not into the top of your lungs. So breathing into your tummy, as deeply as you can for 4 seconds.
Ta-da! Oh, another Tamagotchi time. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to be drinking. I'm going to be finishing my water.
Finishing your water. Holding that breath
what you're doing
for 7 seconds, and then releasing all of that air that you had breathed in slowly but evenly over 8 seconds. Right? So 4 seconds in, as deep as you can, hold for 7 seconds, and then breathing out slowly and evenly over 8 seconds. And that can help and you have to cycle this a couple of times. You breathe back, once you've done that 4-7-8 cycle, you breathe in when it feels appropriate to do so. And doing that multiple times, you might do that for, 5 cycles or 10 cycles, will often engage your parasympathetic nervous system and help with feelings of calm. It'll lower your heart rate, it'll lower your blood pressure. It's really good for anxiety. It's really good for a range of different applications where you need to help yourself to induce a feeling of calm. There's other rhythms that you can use where, for example, so 4 seconds, 6 seconds is great. What's usually good
Yes, Ronnie.
is
Yummy chocolate biscuits.
being able to basically just breathe out for longer than you're breathing in. So the rhythm is not necessarily super important. So you can do 6 seconds in, hold for 2 seconds, and then out for 8 seconds. 4 seconds in, hold for 2 seconds, 5 seconds out is also fine. It's more just important that what you're doing is rebalancing your O2 and your CO2 in favor of the CO2. If it makes you yawn, that means it's working. If it makes you feel a bit dizzy, that means it's working. If it makes you feel a bit sleepy, that means it's working. So, cool, give it a go. You can also upregulate, right? If you're feeling very, very tired and you need to give yourself a burst of energy, I'm not going to give the instructions right now because I don't want anyone to give it a try and accidentally induce a panic attack. But you can basically give yourself a mild form of hyperventilation, and that will help. Yes, Potsies, please do be careful with the dizziness.
And if you have any medical conditions that impact your breathing in any way, don't.
Yeah. So, and if you're asthmatic, if you're a smoker, if you have reduced lung capacity for any particular reason, you might need to adjust the numbers. Lying down for the breathing can be good. Thank you, Leah. Sitting down for the breathing can be good for the breathing as well. So you can upregulate by ramping up your O2, but you got to be careful with that as well, because if you're prone to panic, it could trigger a panic attack if you're not careful. It often doesn't feel very pleasant, but it can give you a burst of energy short term, so that can be very, very useful. But for the most part, 478 is one of my favorites. It's really, really good. It's evidence-based. It's great. The 425 is also really good, and that's sometimes a little bit easier. The tricky thing with the 478 breathing is it's not intuitive, and so it takes some practice. The timing is a little bit hard, but that's the thing. So I would say that would be my recommendation. That's a very broad application. There's some caveats there where, like, obviously if you have POTS, you want to be careful with it. If you have breathing issues, you want to be careful with it. But by all means, if you're going to practice it, certainly the first time you're practicing it, do it while sitting.
Yeah, okay, cool. All right, that's what that's all the questions we'll be doing this evening. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. If you haven't already, please follow or subscribe. We do these streams occasionally. This is more of a formal stream. We also do less formal streams where it's just more like playing games and hanging out with fellow ADHDers in a nice ADHD hangout space. We do still answer questions, but it's a little bit less focus on the questions, a little bit more focus on the games. Please, if you're interested in booking, you can go to blackbirdpsychology.com.au. We currently have availabilities for therapy and assessment, and you're able to book online.
Oh dear.
For our client portal. Do you still have the gnome?
Not only do I have the gnome, I don't know if you can see me, but I am just all over the map. I am.
You are flying. Yeah, I think this is some bugs.
I've developed. I have developed an antagonistic relationship with craft.
I mean, that's an extremely beneficial power when it comes to power washing.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed, if you enjoyed the vibe in chat, please, focus, guys. If you enjoyed the vibe in chat, you can also join the Discord. The Discord does not have any association with Blackbird Psychology. It's just a nice place for fellow thank you for the gifts, everyone. For fellow neurodivergents to hang out and socialize and sometimes organize games and special interests and things like that. One day I'll post up my resource list on there when I discover the executive function with which to do so. and thank you, everyone. No, thank you, Bon, for thank you, everyone. Thank you for the gifts. Oh goodness. And thank you
my
for those who
lord,
joined us on
gifty
Twitch
galore.
and YouTube as well.
Hooray!
Hooray!
Love those
yeah.
nifty gifties.
It was a great big stream. And I'll be for anyone who wants to hang out more.
Hooray!
I'll be playing some Peak, and Joseph, you're also invited to this. I'll be playing some Peak on Willow's channel on Twitch. Oh, thank you, everyone.
Hooray!
Thank you. Hooray! I'll be playing some Peak, and Joe will be playing some Peak with Willow on Willow's Twitch channel. Willow's is also on the Discord. And I will post up. Let me pop it in. Yeah, I'll post it up in all of the chats. Willow's username. Again, that has no professional association, no association with Blackbird Psychology. It's just us hanging out, playing some games. Yes, this is like right now. We'll be moving from
Hooray!
this into Peak. Hooray! Thank you. And so there we go. Let me post. I've just posted up the username, the Twitch username on TikTok, and I'll post it up also on Twitch and YouTube. Where are we? Go there. And so if you were interested in hanging out there, please feel free to hang out with us in Willow's stream. Yeah, again, 18 plus only, and yeah, no professional vibes or anything. We're just playing games. We're just a bunch of ADHDers playing games. That's all. Yes,
Sure.
hooray! And I'll also put the direct link to the stream in the Discord channel as well, which you can find on my link tree or on my Twitch profile. But thank you, everyone.
Sorry, it was James.
All right,
Just
and
Pressure washing the earth.
I'll put another announcement out when we're
Hooray!
doing another one of these more like more formal streams. But have a good night, and hopefully I'll see you all on Willow's stream. See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
I can hit my stop button. There we go.